The story begins with a scene showing a bedroom. The alarm clock started ringing at 5:15. In the morning, the sound echoed throughout the room and the protagonist. Manist remained lying in bed after spending the night working and missing the last train. He still wanted to sleep. He began FFFFFFFFF. Finally, he got up as soon as he realized that the morning had already begun. Mikawa Akihirold, a systems engineer, wakes up early in the morning feeling exhausted. After checking his phone, he sees a notification about a system failure, but understands that he was not called in. With relief, he prepares to start his day. Outside, the streets are already lively, lights are on, and movement is bustling, while the cold winter air seeps into the room. As the year comes to an end, he quietly adjusts to another usual monotonous workday. Akihiro follows the same routine every day. Works, returns home on the last train, eats alone, and goes to sleep. His life has turned into a quiet circle. Woke up, went to work, performed the same duties, and repeated again. When he looks back at the last few years, he realizes there have been almost no changes except that he started talking to himself more often and feeling older. Nothing truly significant has happened in his life, so he believes this uneventful routine will continue for many more years. When Akihiro leaves his apartment for work, something suddenly catches his attention. Surprised, he freezes on the threshold and feels something unusual has appeared right near his home. Akihiro suddenly finds himself in a strange white space. Impressed and confused, he looks around and realizes the door behind him has disappeared. Panic grows as he tries to understand what is happening. In despair, he demands an explanation and tries to comprehend what is going on. When suddenly mysterious notifications appear before him, he is granted a skill called Sage, so he can better navigate the situation. New system messages appear, and a new skill called Acquisition is unlocked for him. It allows him to obtain information and experience. An unknown presence calls itself the Interface, responsible for transporting people from one place to another. Confused and depressed, Akihiro insists that he was just heading to work, and demands to be returned from where he came, after demanding to go back home. The mysterious Interface simply drives him away, wishing him a safe journey. In a moment, Akihiro wakes up in a quiet, natural place. The air is filled with the smell of earth, and the rustle of the forest surrounds him from all sides. The same familiar scent and atmosphere bring back memories how in childhood he once went to the mountains with his grandfather, and nostalgia washes over him in waves. Akihiro's childhood memories begin to surface. He recalls going to the mountains with his grandfather who taught him how to survive in the wild. Together they hunted animals, prepared food, and bathed in the river. Young Akihiro watched his grandfather's skill with admiration and eagerly listened as he promised to teach him everything someday. Warm memories fill him with nostalgia as he recalls those peaceful moments from his past. Akihiro slowly came to, lying on the grass. His whole body ached, and he realized he was no longer in his room. It dawned on him that today was a weekday and that he had a meeting at work. He suddenly panics and abruptly jumps to his feet, but as soon as he looks around, he suddenly finds himself surrounded by trees and wild nature, confused and disoriented. He begins to wonder exactly where he has ended up. Realizing that he is already late for work, Akihiro first anxiously reduces everything to his perfect attendance record, but quickly realizes that is now his least concern. Looking around, he sees only trees wherever he looks. Puzzled as to why he ended up in such a place, he begins to search the surroundings, hoping to come across houses or shops nearby. From a rocky outcrop, he surveys the landscapes and decides to move forward to find out where he actually is. Having reached his highest level, Akihiro looks at the endless wild expanses stretching far into the distance. Around as far as the eye can see, there are no houses, no roads, no signs of civilization. Realizing that he is probably no longer in Japan, he begins to think soberly about survival. There are no settlements nearby, he understands. He must quickly get food and water, but act cautiously because the forest may hide dangerous creatures. Calming himself, he decides first to carefully assess the situation before making the next move. Akihiro checks his bag and finds a lighter, a charger, and a small portable toolkit. Relying on what he has, he decides to craft simple tools that can serve as weapons if necessary. Although he feels completely unprepared for survival, he forces himself to act and crafts a crude spear from a branch. Even a simple tool is better than nothing. He carefully listens to the forest around him. Moving through the grass, Akihiro suddenly notices a snake nearby. It looks like a green snake he once knew, but there is something different about it, more alarming than before. When the snake spits venom, he reacts instantly, grabs a pick from the toolkit and strikes back. He realizes the creature is dangerous, so he must act carefully with it. Just as Akihiro narrowly avoids the snake's attack, he manages to defeat it. While examining the creature, a strange, glowing presence appears before him. This entity introduces itself as a guide assigned to him in this world. It explains that its task is to help him. A moment later, another message appears. His stealth skill has been transferred from the creature he defeated. Akihiro gets acquainted and begins to ask questions, seeking explanations about the strange abilities he has just received. The guide says that upon entering this world, he was given 3 main skills: Sage, Perception, and Acquisition. He also clarifies, the hidden ability he obtained originates from the creature he defeated. Besides these basic skills, he can develop various sub-skills by gaining experience as long as he continues to survive in this new world. The guide explains, stealth is a skill that allows Akihiro to hide by blocking others' visual awareness, although most abilities only start working properly when they reach higher levels through training. Understanding that this takes time, Akihiro begins to accept reality. Looking back at the unfamiliar landscape, he finally realized this was not just somewhere far from home. Reality reaches him as soon as he realizes that he has been transferred to a completely different world, and it overwhelms him with a wave that makes him almost cry. Akihiro asks Seiji if it is possible to eat the snake he defeated. Following the guide's advice, he uses the perception skill to analyze it. The ability confirms that the creature is edible. With relief, he prepares the meat and notices that it even smells strangely good. Inspired a second time by the result, he realizes his new skills may be very useful to survive in this unfamiliar world. After Akihiro prepared the snake, he ate it and realized it tasted like a dace. Thanking for the food, he decided to continue exploring the forest, looking for water in a safe place where he could rest. Moving through the area, he notices a snare trap hidden among the leaves. This discovery suggests that intelligent beings live nearby. Realizing that he might soon meet them, he decides to first prepare proper weapons, hoping that the one who set the trap is friendly. Akihiro collects stones that are easily shaped, and he crafts a simple stone axe. While working, he notices a nearby river and realizes it can become a reliable source of water. Having finished with the axe, he feels a bit safer and decides to make a spear with a sharpened tip next. Just as he is about to continue, his attention is caught by a sudden noise from the forest. Hearing a loud scream from the forest, Akihiro heads to where he had previously seen a trap. Upon arrival, he sees a huge wild boar caught in the trap. While he surveys the stage, he notices another figure nearby and realizes he is not alone here. Akihiro looks closer and sees a young girl standing by the cornered boar. She grips an axe tightly, clearly preparing to handle the animal on her own. From afar, he watches her and marvels at her appearance and determination. As soon as he sees she is ready to act, curiosity awakens in him along with a bit of anxiety about what she will do next. The girl stands before the caught boar, tightly gripping her weapon and preparing to strike. Watching closely, Akihiro realizes her small actions are not enough to overcome such a huge beast. When the boar suddenly charges at her, he quickly throws his own axe at the beast-ring to manage to help before it attacks her. The trapped boar suddenly lunges forward towards the girl. She instinctively flinches and jumps back in shock just before the blow was about to hit her. The axe-like blade thrown by Akihiro hits the boar. The blow stops its furious charged beast collapses to the ground. The girl looks stunned at the fallen animal and realizes someone intervened right at the critical moment. Akihiro rushed forward and stood between the girl and the wild boar. Clenching his weapon in his hands, he warns her to stay back while he prepares to face the beast alone. The girl, still on the ground and stunned by his appearance, watches as he steps forward to protect her from danger. Standing before the huge opening, Akihiro understands there is no way back now. Even an ordinary boar would be dangerous, but this monster-sized one is much more threatening, yet he has already taken a step forward. Looking closely, he notices the front leg he struck with the axe is injured. The wound prevents the beast from properly bearing weight, its movements slow down. Realizing that this tiny chance decides everything, Akihiro freezes in place and tenses. If the boar's tusks hit him, the fight will be over. Using the wounded leg of the boar, Akihiro lunges forward as the beast stumbles. Seizing the moment at the start, he drives the spear into the ground with all his might, striking the beast right on target. The blow lands firmly and the impact causes a collapse. Tired but relieved, I sigh. Akihiro realizes he has managed to bring down the huge creature. The boar finally falls as the decisive strike seals it. Holding his breath, Akihiro steps back, relieved that he survived the encounter. As the creature lies motionless, another system message appears before him. The boar's skill and courage have transferred to him. After the fight, Akihiro catches his breath and understands how close he was to death. He realizes if he hadn't prepared his weapon earlier, he wouldn't have survived this clash. Determined to live in this new world, He decides he must improve his combat skills. Only then does he remember the girl he helped. Returning to her, he checks if she is injured and hopes she understands him as he speaks. Wanting to show he has no ill intent, Akihiro slowly lowers his weapon to the ground and raises his hands. Sitting down in front of the girl, he adopts a completely defenseless posture, demonstrating he is not an enemy. The girl watches him intently, surprised by his sudden gesture. When Akihiro kneels and raises his hands, a message appears. His language recognition is synchronizing. To his surprise, he suddenly begins to understand the girl. She confirms she is not injured and thanks him for saving her. Hearing that she is okay, Akihiro feels relief finally they can communicate properly. When the girl sees Akihiro kneeling with his hands raised and his weapon released from his grip, she blushes and breaks into embarrassment. In her culture, such a gesture is considered the highest form of respect, and it is often associated with a marriage proposal. Deciding that he has proposed to her, she shyly says she accepts, leaving Akihiro completely confused how this situation suddenly turned into such a misunderstanding. The girl says that in her culture, when kneeling, both hands are held up and all weapons are laid down. This is the highest form of respect between a man and a woman, symbolizing a proposal of hand and heart, a misunderstanding due to Akihiro's gesture. She shyly accepts what she believes is his proposal. Akihiro remains completely stunned. His attempt to show peace turned into an unexpected engagement in this unfamiliar world. Still on his knees, Akihiro realizes his gesture was accidentally taken as a marriage proposal. The girl gently asks him to take care of her and tenderly calls him her darling. For now, Akihiro stands confused and stunned in place, just wondering what to do next. Not knowing the customs of this world, 35-year-old Akihiro Mikawa accidentally finds himself in a situation where after saving a girl, he makes a proposal. Understanding the misunderstanding, he feels that his fate may already be decided. The girl happily welcomes him and invites him to her village. Having no better option, Akihiro decides to agree for now, thinking that later it will be best to clear up the misunderstanding while they move to where other people live. The girl cheerfully introduces herself Lizisha, a 5-year-old apprentice hunter. As soon as Akihiro hears her age, he is instantly overwhelmed with shock. He realizes that he inadvertently proposed to someone 20 years younger than him. And also she is a minor. Panic washes over him in waves, and he is horrified by this mistake. Lizisha explains, in her world, if someone is 15, they are already considered an adult. They can live independently and even marry. Hearing this, Akihiro breathes a sigh of relief. The situation is not as problematic as it first seemed to him. He feels ashamed because of the misunderstanding. He quickly apologizes and awkwardly introduces himself, stating his name Akihiro Meikawa. When Akihiro explains that Meikawa is his surname and Akihiro is his given name, Lazashia stops and looks at him with surprise. In this world, surnames are usually borne only by nobles. Realizing this, Akihiro quickly clarifies that at his home this is a common thing, and asks her to just call him Akihiro. Lizisha happily agrees, addressing him respectfully Akihiro-sama, which slightly confuses him. When Akihiro asks her to drop these honorifics and just call him by his name, Lizisha becomes embarrassed. In their culture, this implies very close relationships. What she feels shyly responds to accept immediately. Overcoming her embarrassment, she asks for a little more time before speaking to him so casually and freely. Meanwhile, Akihiro realizes his attempts to resolve the misunderstanding only unsettle the situation, and it becomes even more awkward between them. Akihiro wonders how they will move the giant boar, estimating that it weighs about 300 kilograms. Lazashia calmly suggests first disassembling the prey. To his surprise, she easily lifts the heavy animal with a rope and a tree branch. Her strength turns out to be much greater than he expected. Embarrassed, Akihiro activates his recognition skill and sees her capabilities. Lizisha has high strength and a whole range of hunting skills, hunting small game, medium game, birds, and archery. Grasping Lazash's strength, Akihiro asks Seiji about super strength. He explains, here magical energy, which is spread in the environment, transforms into power that can be used, and super strength works like this. It enhances muscles with this magic. Realizing that this world truly lives by swords and magic, Akihiro reflects on how different it is from the scientific world he came from. Meanwhile, Lizisha finishes draining blood from the boar, then prepares to cut it into parts, advising to cool the meat in the nearest body of water before nightfall. Lizisha notices that Akihiro knows a lot about handling animals and asks if it comes from his family's profession. He explains that he learned this by simply watching his grandfather, who used to go hunting. Having finished preparations, Lazashia says the village is just about 5 kilometers away and suggests heading there. Hearing there is a settlement nearby, Akihiro nods with relief, and they begin the journey together. Walking to the village, Lizaksha asks if it is really okay for her to become his wife. Akihiro awkwardly explains. He is actually 35 years old and worries that he probably looks much older to her, especially considering they are still strangers. Lizizia, however, answers matter-of-factly. She says he looks somewhere in his mid-20s and believes that relationships can begin even between strangers. For her, age is not the main thing, so Akihiro is even more impressed by her gaze. Noticing his hesitation, Laseisha asks if he is offended. Trembling with embarrassment, she admits. She feels comfortable only because it is him, and she will not agree to anyone else. With a bright smile, she suggests they just stick together and see how it goes. Casually recalling that in this world there are ways to reverse Ajingand, at this thought Akihiro simply freezes. So he asks what she meant when she spoke about turning back age. Akihiro asks Seiji clarifying details. The guide explains. Rejuvenation can be obtained through special medicines, magical devices, and sometimes even through divine miracles. Hearing this, Akihiro shudders and begins to wonder if gods really exist in this world. Lizisha routinely reminds him that the world is full of magic, deities, and incredible things, and asks him to stop overthinking everything while they move towards the village. After a long wandering, Lizacia and Akihiro finally reach their destination. From the hill, a peaceful settlement spread out below is visible. Lizacia meets it in Taruka village. Seeing the houses on the scale of the entire settlement, Akihiro was surprised. The village turned out to be much larger than he expected. As evening fell, Lizaxia invites Akihiro to spend the night at her home. Embarrassed, he apologizes and explains that he has no money for lodging, but she does not back down, reminding him that he saved her life. When they reach her house, Laseisha calls her father. He meets her at the door, asks how the situation with the trap went, and notices the unfamiliar guest standing behind her. Laseisha introduces Akihiro to her father and explains that he was the one who saved her during the incident with the boar. However, she casually adds that Akihiro is the man who proposed to her. As soon as she said this, the father and Akihiro exchange glances suddenly, in sharp tension, while the unexpected words hang in the air. Akihiro quickly apologizes for the confusion and politely introduces himself. The situation is incredibly awkward, especially after Lizisha's sudden statement. The father, who composes himself as requested, calmly says he wants Akihiro to come inside so they can properly discuss what happened. As Akihiro follows him, he nervously wonders if serious trouble is about to befall him. In the house, Akihiro is greeted with a fragrant cup of herbal tea while everyone sits down to talk. He notes the pleasant taste and relaxes a little. Tisna, Lizacia's mother, warmly introduces herself. Meanwhile, Ast asks Laseisha to tell what happened, admitting that he still does not understand the whole story. Lizacia excitedly recounts what happened in the forest. She describes how a huge boar got caught in the trap and how she was almost thrown aside by its jerk. But just when everything seemed hopeless, Akihiro suddenly appeared and with a powerful blow felled that monster. She continues the story dramatically, says that after he dealt with the beast, Akihiro threw down his weapon and pushed her away. In front of her, Nelt stopped, stubbornly looked into her eyes and made a proposal. She blushes while telling the story, and Akihiro understands. Her version of events is much more romantic than what actually happened. After she heard Lysace's story, her father calmly explains. Everything seems to be rushing and moving too fast. He clarifies that it's not that he doesn't love Akihiro, but he believes that talking about marriage is premature just because he saved her. Akihiro quickly agrees, relieved, because finally someone else sees the situation the same way. Still, after looking at him a bit more closely, Laseisha's father admits that Akihiro looks like a decent and capable person. Explaining the situation, Laseisha's father imagines. Akihiro is probably a noble young man who fell in love with Laseisha and proposed to her in a fit of passion, struggling with family expectations about marriage. Embarrassed by the exaggerated story, Akihiro quickly denies it and clarifies that he is neither of noble birth nor a person of high status. He explains, in this world, he worked as an accountant in a trading company because he understood his true origin probably wouldn't make sense to people here. Akihiro explains, just that morning he was simply going to work when suddenly he was surrounded by light and he was transported to an enchanted forest. Ast listens attentively, simultaneously examining Akihiro's clothes and noting how finely and skillfully the fabric is sewn. Laseisha is also impressed. She says the material is incredibly delicate and unlike anything she has ever seen. While Akihiro admits that he has no idea how such fabric is even produced in this world. Lazadia's mother apologizes for scrutinizing Akihiro's clothes so closely and explains. She is a weaver, so she became curious because of the unusual fabric. Meanwhile, Ast carefully watches the situation and concludes. Akihiro's clothes probably came from an extremely prestigious merchant. Noticing that he still looks suspicious, Akihiro decides it's better not to go into all the details for now. Since he has nowhere else to go, he politely asks if he can stay at their house for the night. He asked for permission for Akihiro to stay, explaining that his son is currently away working in another village, so the room is free. Although he calls it a modest home, he sincerely invites Akihiro to stay as long as needed. Lizisha leads Akihiro into her brother's room. When he sits down, she says she will bring warm water later so he can clean up. He gratefully agrees after an exhausting, sweat-soaked day. Lizisha tells Akihiro that she will call when dinner is ready and apologizes for not being able to prepare anything fancy. He thanks her sincerely for her kindness, and he thanks her as she leaves the room. Left alone, Akihiro relaxes on the bed and sinks into thoughts about the strange day. Glancing at his hands, he notices the marks from that time are gone, and the thought of a random marriage proposal sneaks into his mind again. At night, Akihiro looks out at the quiet sky and replays everything that happened in his mind. He always thought stories about suddenly being transported to another world were just fabrications. But now, he is living exactly such a story, with Lizisha cheerfully humming nearby while Akihiro silently contemplates the strange new life that has begun for him. The next morning, Lizisha prepares breakfast while Akihiro sits at the table in borrowed clothes. She asks if he wants to work. Desperate to support himself somehow, Akihiro explains that he cannot stay there for free for long and needs to earn money somehow. He asks if there is any work in the village that he could do. That morning, as suggests Akihiro join the Adventurers Guild if he wants to start working. During the conversation, Ast explained that Lasatia went hunting alone the day before his back was acting up. Lazadia confirms that she is still a student and continues to learn hunting skills from her father. Once this is clarified, Akihiro raises the idea to join the Adventurers Guild as the next step to find a job in this new world. Ast says that the Adventurers Guild is a place that organizes various types of jobs, and that Akihiro must first register there. After that, Lizaxia offers to show him around the village. When they go out, as a joke he says, two already look like newlyweds, only this also unsettles Akihiro. Lizisha cheerfully walks ahead, showing him the way. Akihiro is preparing to head to the Adventurers Guild, wearing clothes borrowed from his brother Lazatia. The clothes fit him well, although the pants are a bit long. Lazadia explains, in the village, it is not worth wearing overly fancy clothes, it will attract unnecessary attention. Thanks to their kindness, although he had no money, Akihiro decides he must find a job as soon as possible. Thanking them, he sets off for the guild, firmly determined to start earning a living in this new world. Akihiro arrives at the Adventurers Guild branch in the village of Toroka. Looking at the building and its sign, he notices the writing resembles Japanese. At that moment, the mysterious sage ability activates, and he begins to understand the language of this world. As soon as he entered the guild, he was greeted by the receptionist. She welcomed him and asked if he had come to register as an adventurer. At the guild, the receptionist explains the adventure system to Akihiro. They are ranked by contribution. From rank 10, the lowest to rank 1 the highest. The rank determines which tasks the adventurer can take and how much they are paid. She further explains, travelers usually take only one task at a time, and completing missions builds trust and allows them to increase their rank. But rank is about trust, not pure strength. To complete the registration, she asks Akihiro to prick his finger with a needle, and explains that only a little blood is needed for this. Akihiro pricks his finger and drips blood onto the registration card. The blood soaks into the card, magically binding it to his soul. The receptionist explains that this card will be his official Adventurer Guild ID. Since it is linked to his soul, the guild can determine if the owner dies, and then send a death report to the card reader. When the process was completed, Akihiro's registration as an adventurer was finally confirmed. Since he is new, Akihiro asks the guild receptionist to recommend a suitable job. She suggests a simple request. He orders to send him to collect a plant called wheeze grass. Following the instructions, Akihiro heads to the nearest field. Relying on knowledge and careful observation, he prowls through the tall grass until he finds the required plant and prepares to gather it. Akihiro takes on the guild request to collect 5 stalks of wheeze grass, a task that the Alchemy Guild asks to be completed immediately. The reward is higher than usual, but the administrator warns there are monster nests nearby in the forest. Although the threat level is considered low, it is still advised to have proper equipment. The monsters often encountered in this area are horned rabbits and goblins. Although such creatures may seem weak in games, Akihiro understands that in reality, a fight with them will still be dangerous. To prepare before setting out to fulfill the request, he takes a simple tool one that can become a weapon. Thanks to his recognition skill, Akihiro begins to scour the field in search of wheeze grass. He is confident he will not confuse the plant, so he decides to gather much more than needed, up to 100 stalks, so the task will be completed quickly. As he collects the grass, his thoughts involuntarily return to his former life. Just a few days ago, he was sitting at a desk working on a computer. He has no idea how his company is doing without him, but he convinces himself that the business will operate normally even without him. While gathering wheeze grass, Akihiro reflected on his past. He recalled how he had been continuously busy with work for years, ignoring everything around him. Because of this, his marriage slowly cracked and eventually fell apart. The divorce was 2 years ago. Believing it was his fault, he buried himself even deeper in work and continued to use it as a way to escape loneliness. When Akihiro gathers wheat grass, he recalls Lazacia's confession and realizes her words affected him more than he expected. Although the proposal began with a misunderstanding, he was still shocked that he was accepted. He quickly dismisses these thoughts and decides love and marriage are matters to be resolved later. Refocusing on the task, he continues gathering plants until he finally collects 100 stalks of wheeze grass. Having gathered the grass, Akihiro sits down to rest. His back ached from bending over so long while collecting plants, so he decides to take a short break and then head back to the guild. Lying in the tall grass, he suddenly feels movement nearby. Realizing something is approaching, he becomes alert and senses the presence of an animal in the vicinity. Meanwhile, resting in the grass, Akihiro suddenly realizes nearby is a goblin. It wanders through the tall grass, holding a crude weapon, seemingly searching for something. Quietly hiding, Akihiro watches the goblin and has no idea if it has noticed him. Realizing the monster might discover him at any moment, he decides to act first. Carefully circling behind the creature, he gains speed to close the distance and strike before the goblin can react. Akihiro quietly closes the distance behind the goblin and delivers a sudden blow. Swiftly swinging his homemade weapon, he strikes the monster from behind with all his strength. The goblin staggers from the unexpected punch, but Akihiro does not slow down for a moment. Acting on instinct, he immediately delivers another devastating blow, aiming to finish the fight before the creature can recover. After Akihiro defeats the goblin, he witnesses a strange phenomenon. A shimmering light rises from the monster's body, transferring to him some of its abilities, the goblin's spear technique, and a little bit of alertness. Remembering the guild's instructions, he recalls, proof of conquering goblins is their nose. Although the task is unpleasant, he, through reluctance, prepares to cut it off to take it back to the guild as proof. Akihiro returns to the Adventurers Guild and submits the crushed grass, along with proof of victory over the goblin. The staff begin the evaluation, while he waits inside the quiet guild hall. After the evaluation is complete, the receptionist informs him about the reward. He receives payment for the goblin and for 20 bundles of wise grass, so the total reward amount is 18,000 war. The guild staff explains, the fragrant Nertz grass will be used to prepare healing ointments. They are extremely needed because many people cannot afford to get injured without them. And when their supplies began to dwindle, Akihiro's delivery became a real help. Having received the payment, Akihiro leaves the guild with a feeling of complete satisfaction. The fact that his work was directly thanked gives him a powerful sense of achievement, something he almost never felt. When Akihiro returns home, Lazacia greets him joyfully and welcomes him back. He notices with surprise that they are already home, so he also greets them. Ast explains that Lizaca and he each managed to catch something that day. Meanwhile, Lizaca's mother is preparing dinner from the catch, although she usually hates cooking. During dinner, Ast asks Akihiro how his first day at the guild went. Akihiro says that he gathered 20 bundles of ferret grass and dealt with a goblin, earning a total of 18,000 war. Ast is impressed. There, most people are only able to handle 2 or 3 bundles a day. Akihiro explains, his success is thanks to the recognition skill. Since his income is still unstable, Akihiro politely asks if he can continue living with him until he reaches rank 9, and without hesitation asks about diplomas. As Akihiro says, he can live here for now and use his brother's room because his brother will not return for at least a month. He adds that his brother was covering in business because a hunter from the neighboring village got injured. Akihiro, delighted with such an offer, accepts their hospitality. As soon as the hours gathered, Lazacia calls everyone to the table. Dinner is finally ready. During dinner, Akihiro enjoys the dish and praises the food, especially the tender meatballs and excellent seasoning. Lizaza happily accepts the compliment. She is pleased that he loves her cooking. Mother teases, Supposedly, Lizaza has become especially motivated since Akihiro arrived and it embarrasses her. Despite the jokes, a warm and cheerful atmosphere remains as they share the meal together. During dinner, the conversation drifts to strange rumors about huge footprints found in the forest. Some claim they are the work of a goblin, while others joke that there might even be a creature resembling Bigfoot, and Akihiro listens to the lively exchange. He remembers how long ago it was when he last said, "I'm home," and someone welcomed him back. Although he still does not know what awaits ahead in this unfamiliar world, the warmth of that moment soothes him. For now, he decides to focus on moving forward, and strives to reach rank 9 for the adventurer, starting from the next day. The next day, Akihiro begins training outside, right near the house. He with wooden weapons again and again trains his strikes, trying to increase strength and develop combat skills. But he quickly becomes completely exhausted. Realizing how much endurance he has lost over the years, he understands. Despite training kendo insanely intensively during college, his body has weakened due to neglect and long hours of desk work. Seeing how Akihiro was exhausted after training, Ast warns, in real fights endurance is key. Long battles become dangerous if stamina is lacking. Worrying about his safety, Ast advises. Besides training, he also needs to pray for divine protection to avoid injury. Akihiro is interested and he inquires about it. He is explained. In this world, people pray in church to receive blessings from the gods. The idea seems truly interesting to him. He begins to think about a visit. Lasasha notices his interest and asks if he intends to go there. After his advice, Akihiro decides to visit the church. After asking people in the village, he eventually reaches a large stone building. Looking up, he understands. This is probably the village church, a place where people pray to the gods for protection and blessings. Akihiro enters the village church, and a nun warmly welcomes him. He explains that he is praying for the first time, and asks her to teach him how to worship properly. The nun gently agrees and leads him inside, explaining that the church is a place where people thank the true God. She also tells that children often come there to learn to read and count, so the church in the village also serves an educational role. Inside the church, the nun instructs Akihiro not to rush with the prayer, and she herself waits in another room. Following her words, he kneels before the altar. He raises both hands, closes his eyes, and begins to pray. At that moment, he notices that the posture resembles the one he once used to propose, and he is troubled by the thought. Could this gesture have once originated from a similar act of prayer? While Akihiro prays inside the church, his sage ability suddenly throws strange messages. A warning pops up. A critical failure occurred and an unknown system was disconnected. Akihiro is puzzled by this unexpected notification. He tries to understand what is happening. At that moment, a mysterious voice laughs and even giggles with delight, with playful amusement calling the situation interesting again and again, fascinated by what it has just found. While Akihiro continues to pray, a strange anxiety from his sage power suddenly leads to an unexpected encounter. Before him appears a mysterious figure elegantly dressed, with a light, theatrical presence. The man warmly greets Akihiro, invites him to this world, and introduces himself. He is Shell, a being who claims to govern pleasure. Stunned by the situation, he clearly shows interest in the appearance and very existence of Akihiro in this world. The mysterious man confirms, yes, he is God, and explains that all living beings in this world call beings like him gods. Wondering, Akihiro asks what it means when he is called a visitor. Then God commands Akihiro to introduce himself first. Trembling, Akihiro states his name, Akihiro Meikawa. Hearing this, God decides to simply call him Akihiro and remarks that this name suits what lies ahead. Shell explains that Akihiro is considered an alien, that is, he is the first guest who arrived in this world from outside. According to him, there are countless worlds, and each of them operates independently and is subject to its own gods. Overwhelmed by the explanation, Akihiro tries to keep up with the idea of multiple worlds and divine rulers, but step by step, he begins to lose the thread of what Shell is saying. Seeing that Akihiro is confused, Shell decides to explain everything in words he understands. He says that the universe can be imagined as a network of many independent servers. Each world operates like a separate server, and the people living in it are like terminals connected to it. Meanwhile, the gods act as administrators who manage and control the programs running in each world. Shell continued explaining. Apparently, Akihiro somehow crossed a closed network between worlds and connected to the system governed by the gods. He found this strange situation funny, and at the same time the phenomenon seemed very interesting. Technically speaking, Akihiro wonders if this should have left some trace or log in the system. When he asks about it, Shell reveals the unexpected. These records look forged as if someone interfered with the system. Akihiro wonders, is there a being that controls even the gods like an administrator? Shell confirms this idea, explaining that the administrator is a higher entity above the gods, and he is responsible for the construction of the structures of each world. Understanding this, Akihiro asks an important question. If such an administrator really exists, then why did he connect him to this world at all? Shell explains that they have already contacted the higher system through forged records, but have not yet received a response, joking that the support service is terrible. Next, he clarifies Akihiro's abilities. The Sage skill works as a voice chat support system. It prompts information, and recognition works like a browser and screen reader. Another ability, Acquisition, is administrative authority that allows him to obtain skills. Shell notes, such types of skills usually do not occur among the inhabitants of this world. Shell explains, the administrator's intentions are still unknown, but the gods still meet Akihiro in this world. Akihiro worries that, as a terminal, having abilities similar to illegal software might become a problem, but Shell reassures him. He already knows about this. When Akihiro asks if it is possible to return to his original world, Shell says that as soon as they manage to contact the administrator, the gods will negotiate on his behalf if he wants to return. For now, the gods will watch over him as a new inhabitant of this world. But Shell warns, living there without any basic skills will be extremely difficult, so they decided to give Akihiro some gifts so that he can survive. Shell tells Akihiro that he looks forward to their next meeting and blesses him with goodness in his new place in this world. While speaking, he extends his hand and touches Akihiro's head, thus concluding the process that grants the promised benefits. In a moment, Shell disappears, and Akihiro is left alone in the church. Soon the system reconnects to Akihiro and activates operation. The Sage interface reports, connection confirmed, normal operation restored, and the previous critical error eliminated. When Shell disappears, Akihiro remains alone and tries to process everything that just happened. The flow of information overwhelms him, so he decides to organize his thoughts. Then the system displays several new notifications. It confirms that the conditions for acquiring the skill have been met, and that new abilities have been integrated. Prayer, formula control, attribute control, and control window. Realizing that these are the gifts of the gods, Akihiro begins to ponder what they mean. The description of prayer hints, it is a skill that allows one to address the gods and receive divine revelations. So interested in this ability, he sits outside and decides to test it. He asks the Sage system what exactly prayer does. Akihiro sits outside near the church, still stunned by everything that happened. System messages show. Several new skills have been embedded in him: prayer, formula control, attribute control, and control window. Realizing these are the gifts, he begins to try to understand each one. He learns that the prayer skill allows one to address the gods and receive divine revelations. Akihiro, honestly, decides to check if it really works, and to his surprise, the connection immediately works. A god responds to his call. He is shocked by this, as he only wanted to test his skill. Embarrassed, he quickly apologizes for disturbing God so carelessly. However, God responds calmly and casually, introduces herself as Valda, the one who governs abundance. She explains that if Akihiro ever needs anything, he can simply ask again. Although the brief conversation leaves Akihiro a bit stunned, he understands. The prayer skill truly allows him to communicate directly with the gods. Akihiro continues to examine the new abilities he has acquired and asks the Sage system to explain formula control. The system replies, this skill transforms mana particles into magical power, and then magical power into structured formulas from which he creates spells. Hearing this, Akihiro bursts with joy. Finally, he can use magic in this world. Next, he asks about attribute control. The system explains, magical power created by formula control transforms into a fundamental magical substance, the basic element of magic. For Akihiro, in particular, the wind element was added, so he can use wind magic. Although this currently allows him to use wind techniques, the system clarifies, attribute control skills are relatively easy to master later. Later, with sufficient training and practice, Akihiro will eventually gain access to other elements. Akihiro reflects on everything he has managed to learn. Although returning to his original world is impossible now, the realization that it might happen someday somewhat eases his soul. Since he is now in another world, he decides to focus on studying magic. Gathering his willpower and not retreating, he plans to return home and ask everyone where exactly he can learn this. But he quickly realizes, before doing anything, he needs to train his body. It has weakened over years of office work. During a meal, Akihiro asks if there is a place where he can study magic. Others talk about a mage who manages magical tools in a general goods store. They explain that behind the store there is a shop with magical tools run by that mage maybe he will want to teach him. Hearing this, Akihiro decides to visit there later the same day. Akihiro heads to the general goods store to find the mage who might teach him magic. Lycicia insists that he take her with him and orders him to train with ASD as best as he can. As soon as he reached the shop, Akihiro enters and asks about the mage, explaining that he wants to study magic. The shopkeeper meets him and listens carefully to the request. The shopkeeper leads Akihiro deeper, into a room behind the store where the mage works. Inside, the mage greets him and asks what he needs. Akihiro explains that he heard one can learn magic there. The mage becomes interested, recognizing him as a potential new student. After observing him, the mage notices Akihiro seems to have already mastered control over spell formulas and asks where he learned it. Akihiro explains that he never formally studied magic, and the ability to control spell formulas awakened on its own after he received a blessing from the god who rules magical formulas. The mage finds this very interesting and says, to master the skill, one must only refine it again and again through practice. When asked about his attribute, Akihiro considers it to be wind. The mage then introduces himself Bastia, and Akihiro responds with his name. Bastia continues to inquire about Akihiro's magical attribute to better understand his abilities. Bastia says that wind magic is not his specialty, but still demonstrates it so Akihiro can observe. He carefully composes the spell, setting the wind attribute, pressure, and shape. He forms a compressed wind into a small sphere above his hand and launches it forward. Akihiro watches in amazement as the air gathers and swirls like a boiling ball of wind. Bastia releases the wind spell. The compressed sphere flies forward and hits the target with force. Akihiro watches, holding his breath. Impressed by the power of the technique, Bastia then explains the basics of the spell formula. First, the mage chooses which attribute to use, then imagines exactly how that attribute will be applied. Next, he sketches the shape of the magic, and finally determines exactly where the spell will appear before performing it. Bastia further explains, as soon as a mage clearly imagines the attribute, its application, shape, and placement without contradictions, the spell activates at the very moment the command is spoken. He adds that the last step is to imagine how the magic will move. He also notes, chanting the mantra is not mandatory. Simply pronouncing the spell helps stabilize the image in the caster's mind. After the explanation, Bastia tells Akihiro to imagine the magic hitting the target and invites him to try casting the spell himself. Akihiro enthusiastically agrees. Following Bastia's instructions, Akihiro carefully runs the spell through his mind. He sets the wind attribute, adjusts the pressure, and imagines a small conical shape. He fixes its position just before the fingertip and keeps the image stable in his head. When everything becomes clear, he directs the magic forward at high speed and immediately casts the spell. Akihiro releases the spell and the wind projectile tears forward, knocking the target off its place with unexpected force. Bastia is stunned by the result and quickly tries to stop it. As soon as Akihiro cast the spell, he was thrown off, dizzy and nauseous. Bastia rushed to him to check his condition and immediately understood this was Akihiro's first attempt. She was surprised by the spell's power because wind magic usually pushes or strikes opponents, not creating such a precise and powerful attack. Bastia realizes that Akihiro compressed the wind too much when setting the pressure, because he is not yet used to working with mana. Excess energy bounces back and causes dizziness. Akihiro asks if he can continue casting this spell repeatedly, but Bastia advises not to do so for now. However, she admits, the result for the first attempt was impressive. She also warns, if the spell had hit someone in the head, the compressed air could have caused severe injuries. But as Akihiro improves his control over magic, the recoil and side effects will gradually weaken. Akihiro asks about multi-formula techniques. Bastia explains, such methods exist, but he is still not capable of them, he is only learning the basics. To demonstrate, Bastia shows an example of a spell. He sets the earth attribute, specifies the unit of mass and shape, and lays out several stones in a circle above his hand. The stones rush forward at high speed, and after a short time automatically turn back into mana. Watching the spell, Akihiro freezes. Several stones appear and move exactly as Bastia described. Bastia utters the spell and launches several stones at once, which hit the target one after another. He explains that multi-formulas allow a mage to create several units of magic at once and control each separately. In real combat, the projectiles can also be bent to hit enemies from different angles or even from behind. Bastia adds that he specializes in earth magic, and that many warriors use this technique because it can strike several targets at once. Hearing this, Akihiro realizes how complex the technique is and understands that mastering it requires significant training. Bastia advises Akihiro to continue practicing simple spell formulas and gradually improve control before taking on more complex techniques. When Akihiro asks about the fee for the lesson, Bastia asks about his job and learns that he is only a 10th rank adventurer. Since he is still a novice, Bastia refuses to charge him for now. He tells Akihiro to come when he is free, and as soon as Akihiro reaches the 8th rank, he will start charging for regular lessons. Thanking him for the opportunity, Akihiro expresses gratitude and promises to return. After leaving the shop, Akihiro decides to continue training magic, but first he needs money. He sets out again to gather wee herbs. Based on what he learned, he works much more efficiently than before and quickly collects a large bundle. Later he returns to the guild and hands over the materials. The staff there thank him for bringing the wise herb and ask him to visit again as soon as possible. Leaving the guild, I made a list of the best. Akihiro notices that several travelers are watching him closely and immediately feels awkward. Understanding that novices always stand out, he decides it is better to leave before trouble starts. When he returns home, he hands Tizia a small pouch of money as payment for the day's rent. Tizia meets him again while he gives the payment. Akihiro returns home and greets everyone. He offers money for rent and insists that he should also contribute because he was taken care of. He is warmly welcomed and told that the work finished earlier. The weather seemed bad. Lysatia asks how his journey went and if he managed to learn magic. Akihiro says he plans to train outside for some time. While others talk about rent, he insists he will pay himself. Lysatia becomes interested and asks if she can watch how he trains. Lysatia and others talk about Akihiro's determination. They agree. Someone who works so hard deserves support even if earning money in a foreign land is not so easy. Seeing how sincere he is, they decide not to stop him. Outside, Akihiro begins training, swinging his weapon again and again, practicing strikes and working to build strength. Lysatia quietly watches as Akihiro trains. When she asks why he does not train magic, he explains. Spell control causes mana backlash, so he plans to train it after he finishes physical training. Although she is surprised, Akihiro reassures her. In time, she will get used to it. Lysatia is still a little worried but accepts his explanation. Akihiro practices controlling his wind magic. He wants to restrain enemies, not kill, so he aims at the limbs and sets up a wooden plank as a target. He carefully determines the place, pressure, and form of the spell before releasing the wind projectile forward. The attack hits the deck, accuracy improves, but the recoil still remains a bit and the power feels somewhat weak. Akihiro sees that he is already making progress and decides to continue honing control after training for some time. Well, Akihiro is exhausted and falls powerless from terrible muscle pain. He realizes he overdid it and regrets not training more before coming to this world. Lysatia calls him inside as soon as the rain begins to drizzle. Seeing how tired he was, she brings him a bandage to relieve muscle fatigue. Thanking her for her kindness, Akihiro thanks her and rests, recovering from exhausting training. While Lysatia treats Akihiro's painful muscles, she says, "Father probably won't say it out loud, but he worries about him." Akihiro replies that he is sincerely grateful to them for their kindness. Lysatia says that her father asked her to bring treatment and visit him. Seeing how hard Akihiro works, she is deeply moved and tells him that his efforts make him a wonderful person. Akihiro admits that he wants to do everything he can to repay the family for their kindness, although he jokingly notes that saying such serious words when she is completely exhausted is a bit awkward. While Lysatia treats his muscles, Akihiro grumbles about the itching from the medicine but still thanks her for the help. Embarrassed, Lysatia quietly admits she thinks he is really cool, which surprises him. Lying there, Akihiro reflects that he never thought in all these years he would feel such a youthful moment again. The next day, the body is noticeably better thanks to the poultice. Not wanting to slow down, he goes out again to gather more wheeze grass, planning to go deeper into the forest and, if possible, test the control of his spell in a real fight. While he was gathering grass, venturing deeper into the forest, Akihiro notices two goblins eating something. Realizing that this is a chance to test his magic in a real battle, he quietly prepares himself. Staying in the shadows, he aims at one of the goblins from behind, carefully determining the wind attribute, pressure, shape, and position. He directs the spell in front of his finger, and he rushes into the attack at a furious speed, delivering a wind strike to the enemy's back. Akihiro's wind attack pierces the first goblin, leaving it mortally wounded. The second goblin notices that something is wrong and begins to react. Remaining calm, Akihiro prepares another spell, forming a compressed wind projectile on his fingertip and aiming at the creature's left knee. While he strikes, magic burns forward at a furious speed. At the same moment, a new skill activates alertness, LV. He obtained it by transferring it to himself through skill acquisition. The wind strike Akihiro shatters the goblin's knee, stopping its movement. Taking advantage of the moment, he lunges forward and finishes the creature with one decisive swing. After the fight ends, he checks again if there will be another skill acquisition, but this time nothing. The system shows skill transfer did not occur because the defeated monster had no compatible higher-rank abilities. When the danger passes, Akihiro relaxes a bit and confirms that the goblin is no longer alive. After he defeated the goblins, Akihiro notes that he could have ended the fight faster if he had hit the head. But the guild only asked for goblin noses as proof. Returning to the city, he thinks he is gradually getting used to using magic and sighs with relief. This time he experienced no magical energy backlash. At the guild, he submits the materials and receives a reward for 2 goblins along with the herbs he gathered wheeze, earning a total of 28,000 wares. Pleased with the result, he thinks of buying a new pair of shoes with this money. After rumors about a newcomer who collects large quantities of wheeze grass, the man approaches Akihiro. Akihiro nervously assumes that he might have problems, but the man quickly calms him down. He explains, the supply of herbs for potions is running low, and prices are climbing, so travelers value anyone who gathers medicinal plants. The higher the ranks, the more frequent the injurious and such herbs can decide whether a person lives or dies. And the traveler praises Akihiro for gathering herbs and calls him Herbkun, saying that his work saves lives. Akihiro feels relief because he is valued as soon as the man leaves. Akihiro thinks he only wants a quiet, peaceful life until suddenly someone calls him. A young girl suddenly stops Akihiro and directly, without unnecessary words, asks if he is a mage. He is suddenly taken by surprise, has no idea who she is. The girl next to him apologizes and explains that Akihiro's mana and his magical flow look very pure because of this. They decided that he might be a spellcaster. The girls explain. Akihiro's monocircular flow and magical stream look too pure, so they decided that he is a mage. Akihiro quickly denies this with a smile and says that he is not a mage. Rejecting the assumption, he turns to leave, but the girls urgently call him wait. Akihiro tries to leave, stating that he is only a 10th rank adventurer and probably not suitable for them. The girl, Ari, stops him and insists that he listen to everything. His companion apologizes for approaching so suddenly and asks for a moment of his attention. After her friend scolded her well, Ari involuntarily apologizes to Akihiro for having snapped at him earlier. The girls sincerely ask Akihiro to listen to them. Seeing their desperation, he agrees to listen for a short time. He is led to the meeting room. His comrades are already waiting there. Inside, a man named Deed greets Akihiro and thanks him for coming. In the meeting hall, Akihiro introduces himself, and the group begins to explain the situation. It is revealed, deep in the northern forest, a huge slime has appeared, and it is unlike ordinary ones. It has grown over many years and is now large enough to completely swallow a person. Because of its size, swords are useless, and Wattis's fire magic is poorly suited against it. The group explains, the request came directly from the guild, so they cannot refuse. Currently, they are the only ones in the village who have the 7th rank or higher. They offer Akihiro 70 of the Val reward of 200,000 and promise to cover additional expenses and assist with rank promotion. Vadis notes that Akihiro has the wind attribute with exceptional control, so he will be useful for the mission. Akihiro hesitates and says that this task is far beyond what a 10th rank adventurer should handle, and that personally, he gains little from it. Since the party explains that it will set out the next morning, and the mission is assigned by the guild, a guild auditor will also join them, so there will be 5 people in the group. A slimy creature burrowed deep in the forest, yet still within a day's journey. Deed warns, if left alone, the giant slug will continue to consume things, tear itself apart, and start multiplying, eventually destroying the local ecosystem. Realizing the threat that could affect both the village and the nearby robots, Akihiro hesitates but considers helping. Akihiro agrees to help, although he admits that he is still a novice and may slow down their group. Others reassure him he will cover for him. Everyone feels relieved because he did agree. They plan to set out the next day. Akihiro is worried that the situation has become more complicated and wonders if he will be of any help at all. Akihiro returns home exhausted, as if all his strength has been drained. The head of the house asks about the hunt. Akihiro explains that after a heavy downpour it was difficult to get through the forest, and there were hardly any animals encountered. Noticing blood on Akihiro's machete, the man jokes that cutting must have been exhausting. Akihiro dryly replies that he will sharpen the blade before dinner and assures that he is fine. During dinner, Akihiro recalls the mission against the giant slug. The family falls silent in surprise. They understand that this is a dangerous task. Usually this is below the level of 7th rank adventurers, even with guild support. Although slimes are usually safe, the one deep in the forest is completely different. Akihiro admits that monsters are still dangerous, and the girl recoils with disgust. She says that big slimes are gross, although she has not seen any yet. Akihiro says that there will be other adventurers of the 7th rank there, so he is confident. Everything will be fine, and he decides to help because his abilities might come in handy. Still, he feels uneasy. That night, lying in bed and thinking about the mission, the master simply says, "Be very careful." When Akihiro lies in bed, anxiety catches him. He is not yet ready to go deeper into the dangerous forest to meet the unknown giant slime. He reviews his recent battles and suddenly realizes he has already killed 3 goblins, their humanoid creatures with weapons. His thought confuses him. In this world, he could just as easily be the one who was killed. Along with his own thoughts, Akihiro admits he is scared. The encounter with the god did not give him an immortal body nor endowed him with superpower or strength to wipe out everyone. His abilities are far from a hack, and even a single spell makes him nauseous. Not knowing if the gods are truly on his side, he realizes how fragile his position is in this world. Akihiro recalls his old life, ordinary days with friends, family, work, and simple hobbies. Compared to that peaceful world, his current life is soaked with danger. He cannot sleep, so he admits the truth. He wants to return. The fear of dying in this world overwhelms him, and he struggles to control the growing anxiety inside him. Lost in his own thoughts, Akihiro does not notice when Lasatia enters his room. She calls him several times until he finally responds. Worried, she explains. She tried to call him, but he did not answer, and she is concerned that he might not be feeling well. Lasatia grabs Akihiro's hand, not even realizing it, and quickly apologizes as soon as she notices. Seeing that he has woken up, she calms down. She explains that she was worried because after he returned home, his face became darker than usual. She decided that he was probably in pain, so she instinctively approached to check how he was and apologized for entering his room without permission. Akihiro thanked Lasatia, admitting that he had been overthinking and walking around in a gloomy mood. Talking with her helped him clear his thoughts. Only then does he realize, if he sat alone and bored, he wouldn't have been able to sleep. With relief, he assures her that nothing is wrong. Lasatia smiles and promises to prepare a delicious dinner, encouraging him for the next day, although she quietly admits that she is scared for him. Akihiro understands. Having a place to return to and knowing that someone is waiting for him, there gives him a deep sense of peace. Feeling calmer, he begins to look to the future, joking with Lasatia about the food she will cook, and she happily tells him to look forward to it. The next morning, the man warns Akihiro. The most dangerous creatures in the forest are wolves because they hunt in packs. But wolves are only 8th rank prey, and if there are several 7th rank travelers in the group, it shouldn't be a particular problem. He advises Akihiro not to go too deep into the forest and to keep his ears alert. After breakfast, Akihiro finishes gathering his strength, prepares, and sets off. Before leaving, Lasatia impatiently asks Akihiro to be careful and shoves a tightly packed lunchbox into his hands. And when he casually calls her Liz, she gasps, embarrassedly looks away. It is the first time he has used that nickname. Akihiro laughs and tells her to stop calling him Akihiro-san and just call him Cairo. Lasatia stumbles and blushes, trying to pronounce her nickname, but finally calls Hiro and wishes him a safe journey. Her efforts lift Akihiro's spirits, and as he leaves, he notices a strange excitement has driven away his anxiety. Although Akihiro is still afraid, he chooses to face the mission head-on. Encouraged, he decides to stay in this world for now and challenge the giant slime. As he steps forward with renewed determination, a notification appears, Bravery 1 added and embedded in his acquisition skill. Soon Deed meets him ready to start the mission. When everyone has gathered, the party prepares to depart. A guild member named Hardy's introduces himself. He is an auditor who will accompany them on the mission. After brief greetings, the company sets off together to the destination, the Northern Forest, where the giant slug awaits them. As the group advances into the Northern Forest, Deed warns, from this point on, the number of monsters will increase. He orders everyone to be on alert as they go deeper into the thicket. Making their way through the forest, Akihiro asks if the giant slug is still in the same place. Hardis explains, once slugs grow to large sizes, they almost never move. To orient himself, Akihiro checks the map and compass, surprising the others with this. Deed finds this impressive because he usually determines direction by the sun and time. When the gangs make their way through the forest, 2 goblins suddenly jump out and attack. Akihiro warns the group, but Deed reacts instantly. Instantly, drawing his sword, he struck the goblins with one swift blow before they could reach them. Kihiro is impressed by Did's speed. He recognizes the skill that a Shamorang adventurer should demonstrate. Quickly gathering evidence of conquest, the group goes deeper into the forest. Moving further, Did notices that the mana density becomes significantly stronger, and the forest around them darkens and becomes increasingly threatening to the group. The group suddenly finds themselves surrounded by a pack of wolves. The fastest to notice this immediately understands that they have been encircled and warns the others. Did orders everyone to push back the wolves while Wadas prepares a spell. As the wolves close in, the team forms a defensive line to protect the mage, and she begins to chant the spell. Wadas finishes her chant and releases the magic. Instantly, the wolves fall one after another, and the threat is eliminated so quickly that Akihiro twitches in amazement. When asked about the spell, Wadas calmly replies that she cannot cast large-scale magic. Instead, she compressed small fireballs and threw them directly into the wolves' mouths, burning their lungs from the inside. Wadas calmly defeats the wolves without maiming their bodies, so the materials remain intact. Behind the gentle appearance lie extremely cruel methods. Did explains that wolf pelts can be sold, so they will collect them on the way back. After regrouping, the squad goes even deeper into the forest, expecting to reach the destination in about 2 hours. Hades reassures Akihiro. It's normal to be nervous because the mission is above his rank, and he only recently became a traveler. He thanks him for agreeing to help despite everything. Akihiro worries that he might not be very useful, but Hades remains supportive. Meanwhile, Akihiro quietly notes, ordinary artist looks so mundane that his face is strangely hard to remember. Hades notes that balanced parties like theirs are rare, so this team is reliable both in attack and defense. Deed says that all three are old childhood friends from the same village. Hearing this, Akihiro shudders and, jokingly jealous, thinks, Grandpa must have had incredible luck to grow up with two wonderful childhood friends. Hades quickly took down another monster, slicing it with effective swordplay in a way that impresses Akihiro. Realizing that Hades is a guild officer, Akihiro admires his skill. When the road is clear, Hades orders the group to move forward toward their goal, determined. Akihiro decides to help as much as he can since they have come this far. The group finally reaches the target and finds a huge slime. Its colossal size shocks Akihiro, much bigger than he expected. Hades confirms the location matches the report, so this huge slime is their target. The team confronts the huge slime. It is almost 3 meters tall. Akihiro is stunned by its size. Hades explains, the weak spot of the slime is the core inside its body. If the core is destroyed or enough of the slimy mass around it is removed, the monster's activity will stop. Akihiro asks Dida to throw a slippery stone to see how it reacts. When the stone hits the slime slowly shifts toward the point of impact. After a moment, it sluggishly rolls back, showing that the monster reacts to disturbance but moves extremely slowly. Hades explained, they only need the slime's core, so the outer jelly shell is not necessary. But it's worth not destroying more than needed because some materials can still be restored. Akihiro decides to try to tear off the outer slime, first applying moderate force. But he worries that such a huge target might exhaust him. Others encourage him while he prepares to try. Akihiro steps forward to attack the huge slime, but the pressure makes his hands tremble. Cringing from his own shame over his nervousness, he tries to pull himself together. Realizing that everyone has covered for him so he can act right now, he clenches his will into a fist and decides he will not avoid Thish must see it through to the end. Akihiro carefully visualizes the spell. He compresses a wind sphere about 10 centimeters in front of his finger, adds rotational force, and shapes it into a narrow pressure cone. Calculating the result, he launches the attack at about 700 kilometers per hour, roughly half the speed of a pistol bullet. Akihiro carefully aims slightly to the right of the slime's core and releases the spell. A compressed wind projectile arrow flies forward at a mad speed. It pierces the slime body and explodes from within, fiercely tearing the gelatinous mass into pieces. Akihiro's attack shatters the slime's outer body, and the jelly scatters across the ground. But the core remains intact. However, the slime's outer body is still undamaged. The slime stops its activity, completely subsides. Others praise Akihiro for handling it on the first try. After he confirms that Sliz is defeated, Akihiro briefly celebrates with relief as his attack worked. And just as he casts the spell, the tension strikes him immediately. This makes him so nauseous that he almost vomits, and it causes a terrible headache. When he twitches and struggles, Vada supports him and thanks him for going so far for the team. Having received feedback from his own spell, Akihiro wonders if the severe nausea was caused by the compression and speed of the wind strike. He decides that next time he needs to properly test and tweak it. Meanwhile, others gather at the remains of the huge slime in the very heart. HARDESD notes that such monsters are rare, while Deed says it was worth it. Hardy's promises to consider Akihiro for future requests and reminds him to keep the promise to help again. After the battle, the group checks the Core of Tears and asks if Akihiro is feeling better. He apologizes for troubling them and admits that the echo of the spell was the worst he has experienced so far. And others are amazed. They did not expect him to possess such power, and they praise him for defeating such a huge monster with a single blow. For now. While the group praises Akihiro, he modestly says that he has only recently learned magic and understands his limits. Suddenly, the lightness of sensation approaches. The hardest to react to this is anxiety. And she warns the others. Something huge is heading towards them, but she still cannot make out what exactly. The group feels a powerful presence rapidly approaching. HARDIS immediately orders everyone to retreat. Flashing through his mind that they underestimated the danger, Grandfather quickly organizes the retreat. Hardis takes the lead while others run, and Did and Ari stay behind to cover the rear. Vadis seizes the core of the slugs as they break free. While the squad retreats, a deep howl rolls through the forest. Gardes understands. Such a voice is far too low for an ordinary wolf. Irea warns, whatever is approaching, it comes swiftly, so everyone must tear faster before it reaches them. While they race through the forest, the team realizes the threat behind is not a single monster, but a large pack of wolves, more than 10, and they are clearly stronger than usual. Akihiro is falling behind, struggling to breathe, and suddenly realizes he is holding everyone back. Anger gnaws at him is delaying this party. Realizing that he cannot escape from the wolves, Akihiro suggests climbing a tree and using magic to hold them off. He says that if he manages to rest between spells, he can attack continuously. Deed is worried if it is really safe because they do not know how many wolves there are, but Ari believes that Akihiro's magic will work. Wasting not a second, Gardes agrees to the plan, noting that wolves usually have limits on the size of their pack. The pack swiftly climbs a tall tree to escape the approaching wolves. Catching his breath, Akihiro laments his weak endurance and vows to start jogging and train more as soon as he returns. And just as they settle in their places, Iri warns the wolves have already arrived beneath them. In a moment, the wolves gather under the tree. Their shadows spread across the ground as the pack besieges the area. The group understands these are not ordinary wolves. Each one is gigantic and much scarier than they expected, confirming the danger chasing them. From the tree, they clearly observe the wolves and freeze at their size. Each is about 3 times bigger than a normal wolf. Using his recognition skill, Akihiro realizes these wolves have adapted to places with dense magical energy and turned into monsters. Their pelts are much tougher than those of ordinary wolves. From the tree, the group realizes things are worse than they expected. The wolves keep howling, calling the rest of the pack, and below there are already almost 20 of them. Seeing the danger growing, Gardes turns to the Vadises, calmly prepares magic, and begins the spell. Wadas jumps from the tree and attacks the wolves with fire magic. However, monsters only get minor burns and still keep fighting. Hardis finally understands the problem. Unlike before, she cannot make the wolves open their jaws, so she cannot burn their lungs from the inside. Without Deed and Eri holding them back, her magic works much weaker. Seeing that the wolves cannot climb the tree, Akihiro decides to attack from above. He prepares another wind spell. He squeezes a small ball of air in front of his finger and forms pressure. Calculates speed so the wolves don't have time to dodge, aims at one of them and releases an attack. Akihiro's wind hits perfectly. With one shot, it takes down one of the wolves. With relief, he realizes the attack worked. But Hard sharply notices another trouble: the pack is still growing. More wolves gather under the tree, surrounding them, while their number keeps increasing. Hardis warns, if they don't quickly reduce the number of wolves, other packs might be drawn by the noise. He asks Akihiro how fast he can repeat the powerful spell he used earlier. Realizing that the wolves can't be defeated alone, Akihiro concludes he needs to try something new. To hit many at once, he decides he will have to resort to a multicast spell. As Akihiro prepares to attempt the multicast spell, he recalls his instructor's warning. Excessive weaving of magic can cause severe harm or dangerous side effects. Despite the risk, he understands there is no other choice. Accepting the danger, he relies on a desperate prayer and moves forward with the spell. As Akihiro prepares to push his magic further, suddenly a voice connects with him. It is called Electo, an entity that controls spellcasting. When Akihiro urgently asks about the danger of overusing magic, his voice reconnects with him again. Electo explains, the nausea he felt earlier is only the first symptom of how the brain intoxicates from magical overstrain. If he continues to abuse magic further, it could cause severe damage, up to cerebral hemorrhage. Electa tells Akihiro that their guest is fighting, so she will temporarily help keep the spell under control. But she warns, once this ends, he will likely lose consciousness for several days. Understanding, Akihiro accepts the command and prepares to try the multicasting technique. Glancing down, he notices almost 30 wolves and realizes the entire camp is against him. Akihiro tells Hardis that he will handle the situation but warns, after this, he will most likely collapse. Filled with determination, he prepares to give his all. With the help of Electa, he aims the targeting grid at each wolf and begins to lock onto them one by one. After carefully counting, he finds a total of 34 wolves and prepares to strike them all at once. Using Electa, stabilizing the spell, Akihiro prepares a massive multicast attack. He creates 34 compressed wind shots each, transformed into a small pressure cone, and aimed at a speed of about 150 km/h. Each projectile separately locks targeting on a different wolf. He thought about the people waiting for him to return home. He gathers determination within himself and releases the spell, simultaneously delivering all the attacks. Akihiro releases the multicast spell, simultaneously firing dozens of compressed wind shots. Each projectile hits a different wolf. Explosions tear their bodies apart simultaneously, and with one strike erase the entire pack from the face of the earth. From the tree, the others freeze in shock as the wolves fall to the ground throughout the forest. None of them will move again. Exhausted but relieved, Akihiro realizes the threat is gone and he can finally return home. Having defeated the wolves, Akihiro feels his strength finally giving out. Consciousness begins to fade. Strain from the colossal spell catches up with him. When consciousness slips away, he apologizes to Hardis, and a mysterious figure controlling the magic calmly watches from afar. Akihiro comes to in a strange space and meets a mysterious man named Electa. The man explains that this is their first meeting and welcomes him as a guest. Akihiro thanks him for the earlier help and is confused, not understanding exactly where he has ended up. Electa calmly explains, this place is connected to the system that controls spell summoning. Akihiro also notices Electa's unusual clothing resembles ceremonial attire from his own world. So it turns out the mysterious figure is well acquainted with him and his origin. Electa explains, he created this space to talk with Akihiro while his body is unconscious. Akihiro will remain in a coma for some time after the exhausting magic, so they have time to talk. Akihiro was confused. What could a person like him talk about with a god? Electa reveals, creatures who control magic observe different worlds, and Earth is one of the most popular. According to him, Earth attracts attention due to captivating perspectives and ideas. Electa explains, each world is created with a specific theme. For Earth, it is the development of civilization, and for this world to give people the chance to live as happily as possible. He reveals that the planet is essentially a copy of Earth, down to the genetics, so the inhabitants resemble humans. But the gods adjusted the system to reduce wars among members of the same species. In the end, a world inspired by Earth, but created to pursue happiness, not conflict. Electa further explains that many beings who govern various worlds are quite interested in Earth, especially Japanese culture, games, anime, and manga, and he himself likes earthly things. He even admits that he loves potato chips the most, constantly imitating new flavors and trying them. Akihiro understands, otaku culture is popular far beyond Earth. Electa asks him to help introduce potato chips in this world. Locals believe that potatoes are poisonous because they got sick after eating the leaves. Akihiro reluctantly agrees to help when he returns. The Chosen One tells Akihiro that it is time to return. Although time flows differently in that space, Akihiro will soon wake up in the real world. Thanking Electa for the help and conversation, Akihiro says goodbye. As his consciousness fades in the strange realm, he wonders what will happen when he wakes up, and whether it is safe to return to his companions. The boy slowly regains consciousness in a quiet room, blinded by the bright light shining into his eyes. He scans the space with his gaze and realizes he is back in his room. A thought begins to gnaw at him. Are all the others safe, and did he really manage to escape alive? Vivid memories of the strange experience still flash brightly in his mind. When he gathers his thoughts together, the meeting with the mysterious being who claimed to be God clearly comes to mind, confirming that everything that happened was real, not just a dream. The man notices a young girl sleeping by his bed. Exhausted from caring for him all this time, she understands that he was unconscious, and she was watching over him. Barely breathing, he carefully tries to wake her up. She is still half asleep, moving slowly, and it is clear that she was by his side the whole time while he was coming to. The man tries to wake the girl, But she does not wake up, she only softly slides off the bed and slips onto the floor. He whispers, still resting calmly. Seeing how soundly she sleeps, he realizes she is simply completely exhausted. After getting up, he checks his condition and notices his body is strangely well, except for a few minor scratches probably appeared while he was being carried. The girl finally wakes up and immediately sees that Hiroise is conscious. Relief washes over her, she rushes forward and tightly hugs him, thanking the heavens that he has come to. When she calms down, she warmly greets him and suddenly realizes she was the one caring for him while he was unconscious. Liz tightly squeezes the hero, trembling with excitement after finally seeing that he has regained consciousness. Her emotions wildly overwhelm her. With panic, she presses on him so hard that it is hard for him to breathe. The hero quickly calms her down and calmly helps her slow down, showing how to breathe and relax. Step by step, Liz begins to calm down until the tension subsides. Liz explained that the hero was brought back by others after he fainted from excessive use of magic. The Apothecaries Guild confirmed. He simply overexerted himself and will wake up once he rests. With relief, the hero apologizes and thanks for being brought back alive, and for Liz staying by his side all this time. Liz admits how much she worried for 3 days while he was unconscious and feared he would never wake up. The hero smiles and tells Liz that he has returned. He explains that his wild desire to return home drove him while he was unconscious. Liz warmly welcomes him back, glad that he is safe again, and Hiro admits that he probably overdid it a bit. After waking up, Hiro is treated to a light soup prepared so as not to irritate the stomach. Liz explains that while he was unconscious, members of the Apothecaries Guild came and gave him liquid nutrition to keep him healthy. Relieved to see that he is recovering normally, Hiro starts eating and quietly thinks about how to later ask how much the treatment cost him. Meanwhile, another man is preparing to go hunting and tells Akihiro to rest and relax for the whole day. Liz insists she wants to stay close to Hiro. The hero says that his body is fine and that he just plans to take a walk around the village, so there is nothing to worry about. Liz immediately stops him. No need to overexert himself, and suggests going with him as soon as he comes to report to the guild. He calms her down and decides that he will just greet the people there and return quickly. Although Liz was worried about him, the hero is also concerned about what happened after he fainted and wants to hear all the details. On the way to the guild, the hero decides to check his current skills. A status window pops up listing abilities: vigilance, prayer, spell control, concealment, bravery, and spear technique. Among them, he notices a new skill: water attribute control. Rewinding in his mind, he realizes maybe he acquired it during the slime incident, but he was already on the verge of collapsing then, so the message might not have been conveyed properly. When Hiro arrives in the town, one of the villagers sincerely thanks him for helping them yesterday and asks if he is feeling better now. Hiro modestly replies that he was the one who caused trouble on the way back. The villager quickly reassures him. He explains that nothing dangerous happened and that he stayed alert using the vigilance skill and managed to return safely. The conversation continues in a friendly atmosphere, and others happily greet Akihiro. In the guild, the hero is warmly welcomed by the travelers he helped earlier. They thank him for his efforts and finally breathe a sigh of relief seeing that he has recovered. The hero expresses gratitude for being carried back after he collapsed, understands that it was probably difficult. Others explain that everyone took turns carrying him, and Arie also quietly thanks him for the help, despite the trouble he got into. At the guild, the staff explains the results of their latest mission. It looks like a wolf-like creature they defeated. She was identified as a new species, dire wolf. Because of this discovery, the guild awarded an unprecedentedly large prize. The total reward for the party is 1 million wall, divided equally among 4 participants. Each receives 250,000 wall, an amount considered quite significant, almost like the annual income of a local farmer. The guild leadership gives the hero a pouch of money and says that it includes both payment for achievements and a reward, a total of 390,000 wall. Party members laugh. They say defeating the terrible wolf would usually be impossible for adventurers of such rank, but the mission was carried out as a high-ranking conquest operation. Then the staff reveals a special order came directly from Viscounto reward hero for catching something truly valuable, capable of benefiting the domain in the future. As a special exception, the guild also added this to his already completed records. The guild announces that Akihiro has been promoted to rank 9, the rank of adventurer. Others congratulate him and say that from now on it will be easy for him to find companions. The staff explains, a regular rank 9 exam is taming goblins, but Akihiro is exempted because he has already achieved the required accomplishments. From rank 7 onwards, travelers are required to form parties of at least 3 members. He will soon need companions. Akihiro is troubled by the very thought of searching, remembers how in his previous life it was difficult for him to find friends. Just the thought of assembling a team of adventurers is a difficult challenge for him. The guild explains, such parties are often made up of people from the same town or through acquaintances arranged by the guild itself. And due to Akihiro's recent achievements, many adventurers will likely want to join him. Feeling relieved upon hearing this, Akihiro decides that he can relax for a while. Akihiro notices that Vadis is not nearby and asks what happened. The others explain they will live in the village for some more time. During the conversation, Akihiro notices the REA bracelet on her wrist. She shyly says that it is part of her engagement. Akihiro sweetly compliments her compliment about the bracelet, making her blush with happiness. Meanwhile, the others recall that they plan to go out together for some time, all as a group. Ari explains, in her country when a couple becomes engaged, the man gives the woman a bracelet. After the wedding, the two exchange rings. Akihiro congratulates her but honestly admits that he is not very familiar with local customs. After a brief thought, he quickly shifts his gaze back to something more important, finding friends for his adventurer team. After that, he apologizes for holding them up and lets them continue their plans. Akihiro recalls that he learned about adventurer ranks. From the 8th rank, adventurers can usually already earn a living, and at the 7th, life becomes more stable. But along with this, the difficulty of quests also increases. Having reviewed several requests for the 8th rank like cutting down a pack of wolves or hunting bears realizes, these are not tasks he can easily handle alone. The 9th rank is essentially for preparation, meaning he needs to understand his own capabilities and find partners before moving forward. Akihiro understands. To assemble a party, trust and strong bonds are needed, things that usually take a long time to build. And in a job where life is constantly hanging by a thread, finding comrades you can truly rely on is even harder. Unlike a game, where defeat can be brushed off like dust, this is all real. Recalling his experience as a company leader, he realizes he must gather reliable people as soon as possible if he wants to survive and live in this world. Akihiro returns home and thanks the woman who meets him, offering lunch. She hands him a pouch with money. They explain that it covers a visit to the doctor from the apothecary guild, as well as rent, and ask him to accept it since they have taken care of him. After resting in the room, Akihiro decides to spend the day on internal training, even though he was ordered to take it easy. Meanwhile, the woman notices. His habit of pushing himself is very similar to Liz's behavior. Akihiro accidentally falls asleep, then wakes up later and sees that Liz is sleeping next to him again, realizing that he was probably brought home without noticing it. He is surprised to find that the situation is almost the same as the previous morning. Cautiously calling her by name, Akihiro sees Liz slowly waking up, while he awkwardly wonders if he is experiencing a strange feeling of déjà vu. Liz suddenly announces that she also wants to become an adventuress. The heroine is completely baffled by her unexpected announcement and can only freeze in shock. Liz insists that she wants to become a traveler. She explains that she never wants to experience the fear of almost losing the hero again. Confident, she asks to stay close to him so she will be able to protect and support him from now on. The hero thanks Liz for her feelings and admits that he trusts her. But he still tells her that right now, she cannot become an adventuress. He reminds her that she is still the hunter's apprentice and the only valuable daughter of the house owner. Therefore, such a decision cannot be taken lightly, and the hero says that first this matter must be properly discussed with Wadis and Theja. Liz firmly insists that she will become an adventurer and join Hero's squad. Although she plans to talk to her father, she declares, the final word is hers. The hero explains that being a huntress is already a respectable profession, and reminds her that she still has a lot to learn in Vadis. He also admits that he does not want to take her to places that are too dangerous. Then Liz asks if by any chance the hero himself does not want her to become a traveler. The hero honestly replies that just as she worries about him, he worries about her. Liz insists that her decision to become an adventurer is not a frivolous one taken lightly. She says she thought it through in advance. Although she is pleased that the hero worries about her, she wants him to acknowledge that she has her own skills and is not fragile. She is confident that she can be useful. Feeling her determination, Hiro sighs and agrees. If it hurts her so much, first they need to properly discuss everything with Wadis and Thesia. During the conversation with her father, Liz suggests the idea of becoming a traveler. She explains that it was her own decision, and the hero only proposed to properly discuss it with her parents. Her father listens quietly, then directly asks Akihiro, "Was it you who invited her to join?" Akihiro is confused by such a question. Liz explains, After what happened recently, she does not want to just sit at home and wait for Hiro to return. She says she seriously thought about it and decided she wants to go on conquest missions together with him. Her father listens attentively, then turns to Akihiro and asks what he thinks about this idea. Embarrassed, Akihiro freezes. He does not know how to answer. Liz's father admits he is worried about sending her to dangerous places and would prefer that she continue working as a hunter. Akihiro explains. He was also surprised when Liz said she wanted to become an adventurer. He understands every task involves life and death risks, and injuries are inevitable. At first, he tried to persuade her to change her mind. But he realized, when Liz makes a decision, she almost never changes it. Hearing this, her father admits that Akihiro understands her well. Akihiro says, if Liz joins his squad, she will be no more and no less than his companion adventurer. He admits, trust among squad members is extremely necessary. He promises that if danger arises, he will protect her without hesitation, and asks her father to accept their decision. Realizing this, Liz reacts to his words with incredible enthusiasm. Liz's father finally agrees, admitting, once she makes a decision, it will not be so easy to change it. Trusting Akihiro, he asks him to take care of Liz. Confident with joy, Liz thanks her father and promises to do her best as a traveler. Her father reminds her not to forget what she learned as a novice huntress and to keep improving. Liz confidently agrees. Liz's father makes a decision, noting that the harvest was good, and allows her to move forward. Akihiro feels relieved. He is glad his approval was useful. Bursting with emotion, Liz announces, tomorrow she will go to the guild and register as an adventurer. After this, Liz officially becomes a member of the party. Although Akihiro is glad that Liz joined the party, it creates a new problem: how to determine her role. Considering her strong physical training, placing her on the front line is quite possible. However, Liz mainly uses a bow specialized for hunting small animals, so she is ineffective against large monsters. Akihiro cannot decide where exactly to place her in the party. He considers Liz's abilities and realizes that the strength of Hercules mainly enhances her muscles with such power. Perhaps she is better suited for the front line than staying in the rear. She pauses for a moment, wondering if her bones can withstand such force. And he recalls, her magic amplifies the strain on the body, protecting it from the impact of her own power. Then, as if pondering her role, Liz notices this and asks if it is better for him that she fights on the front line or stays in the rear. Akihiro asks Liz if she agrees to fight on the front line with a shield and blunt weapons. Liz nods happily. She will do her best if this role suits the party. When he asks if she can chop with an axe, Liz replies that she doesn't care about weapons, and the one she carries was initially given to her for self-defense. Everything is decided. Akihiro immediately concludes Liz will take a position on the front line. But then another problem arises: they still need money. Akihiro realizes preparing Liz for the front line is expensive. Heavy armor costs a fortune, and he hasn't even gathered proper equipment for himself yet. Simpler types of weapons are at least more cost-effective than bows, but the road ahead still looks tough. He is also wondering whether Liz will be able to handle the goblin at all. Meanwhile, he decides they will hunt goblins to gain experience, earn money, and then they head to the guild to look at weapons. Liz happily agrees, but says there is someone he has to meet later. Liz explains the person she wants Hiro to meet is also an adventurer, apparently around rank 9. And since they are looking for party members, Liz thinks this is the perfect chance. She admits that the girl is her childhood friend, the same age, 15. Although she grew up in a farmer's family, she has been working as an adventurer since about 10 years old to earn for herself. Hearing this, Hiro calms down a bit. If she is Liz's longtime childhood friend, then her character probably deserves trust. Liz explains that she already talked to her friend the day before and arranged to meet her at the guild. The girl agreed, so she should be waiting there. Hiro asks to be introduced and worries about making her wait. Liz casually says there is no need to hurry. As they head to the guild, Hiro thinks about the calm pace of rural life and the strict deadlines he was used to in his previous corporate job. On the way, Liz tells about her childhood friend. She explains that the girl used to hit boys who teased her when they were children. Although she can be sharp-tongued, Liz insists that deep down she is very kind. Hiro learns that the friend is also a girl, and he is a bit shaken. Adventures are dangerous business. Finally, Liz calls her friend's name Fia. Liz introduces Akihiro to her childhood friend at the guild. The girl happily greets them and immediately recognizes Liz. After that, she names herself Fian, adventurer of rank 9. She warmly and friendly welcomes Akihiro when they first meet. Fia casually explains she comes from a farmer's family, so her rough manner of speaking may seem strange. Akihiro tells her not to worry. Observing her energy and straightforwardness, he realizes she is a real tomboy. Fia then jokingly tells him to relax and speak frankly, teasing that he is Liz's fiancé. And Liz immediately reacts quickly embarrassed. Fia brings up Akihiro's recent feat. She says she heard he defeated a whole group of high-ranking prey at once and even handled the so-called dire wolf alone. Impressed, she says his strength is simply incredible. Akihiro instantly denies, refusing to take all the credit, and explains it was not only his power. He honestly admits that after the fight he collapsed, implying the victory was not solely his merit. Fia suddenly jokes that she wouldn't mind becoming Akihiro's second wife, says it casually. Liz immediately explodes with rage and screams her name, clearly madly offended by that jab. When the tension between the two girls becomes visible, it is immediately clear. Ahead of Akihiro awaits not only a difficult road, but also the beginning of a turbulent new chapter. Fia continues to tease, praising Akihiro. She says that defeating a level 6 prey alone is proof that he is an excellent candidate. Liz immediately objects sharply, maliciously insisting that Hiro is not a candidate for anything. Two start arguing while Akihiro awkwardly watches silently. The more everything spirals into chaos, the more Akihiro can only think about how suddenly everything has become confusing. Akihiro quickly interrupts the mockery and explains that according to the laws of his native country, a person can have only one wife. Fia reacts with surprise and asks if it is really true. Akihiro explains that he has not yet decided about the engagement with Liz and adds that he has no intention of practicing polygamy. Liz quietly smiles beside him. Liz proudly announces that she has officially registered as an adventurer and shows her guild card. It states that she is rank 10. Fia greets her, surprised that Liz decided to become a traveler, and asks what will happen to her job as a hunter. Liz replies that for now her brother will take care of everything. So there is no problem. Liz confirms that she plans to join the party. She casually says, as soon as she gets married, she will leave the family home anyway, so there will be no problems. Fia teases her with the same snotty Liz as she remembers, and they both laugh. Glad to meet both exclaim how exciting it is to work together again. Meanwhile, Akihiro quietly wonders if his opinion even matters here. Akihiro decides to visit the armory, and Liz and Fia agree to go with him. When asked what they will do next, they reply that they have no other plans, so they set off there together. In the shop, Akihiro asks Liz which blunt weapon she prefers. Looking around, Liz quickly pulls a large hammer towards herself and says it looks cool. Akihiro stops and considers the choice, examining it. While wandering the shop, he decides he should get a real machete for himself. After checking several blades, he selects one and asks the seller to prepare the purchase. Meanwhile, Liz holds a large pickaxe and imagines a full set of gear. Fia excitedly praises her, saying she really looks like a traveler and that the weapon suits her perfectly. Akihiro decides to buy these items, and Liz insists on paying for her own gear. Fia excitedly offers to buy something for herself too, but Liz quickly stops her. Akihiro decides to pay for Liz's gear and tells her to accept it as a small thank you gift. She hesitates at first, but then agrees and sincerely thanks him. Although he spent a considerable amount, Akihiro feels calmer the recent reward added money to him, so he considers the purchase necessary expenses. Fia asks Akihiro if she can see his magic in action. Instead of showing it in the city center, they head to a quiet place on the outskirts of the village. She leads them to a small clearing in the forest where she usually trains. Since no one goes there, it is a good place for free practice. Then Fia asks if she can try shooting at a wooden target, and Akihiro allows her to go ahead. Liz notes that this is exactly where Fia usually trains. Akihiro begins to demonstrate his magic. He focuses on the wind element and forms a small spinning body of air in front of his finger, clearly controlling its size and position. Holding the spell stable, he adds rotational force and launches it forward at high speed. The compressed air rushes forward like a projectile and hits the target with a sharp strike. After that, he calmly explains that this is essentially how his magic works. Fia watches Akihiro's demonstration and asks if he is really a beginner. Liz looks surprised at such a direct question. Akihiro calmly admits that he really is a beginner and asks why she thinks so. Fia explains that the spell he used is taught right at the start in basic magic lessons. It is given to beginners so they understand the spell's structure and feel the feedback from excess magical output. Fia says that the same spell is usually covered very early in magical education. She says that once students reach the intermediate course, they start using something called a simulator to train magic safely. Akihiro recalls that he once worked with a mage who briefly mentioned this idea. Although he still couldn't fully master it, the idea is now becoming clearer to him. Then Fia explains how the process works. A mage conducts a simulation inside their own mind before casting a spell. If the imagined result looks stable and correct, one can proceed to execution. The summoner must very clearly visualize the outcome and confirm that the spell's structure will work as intended. Listening carefully, Akihiro paraphrases the essence in his own words. It's essentially launching an application in his head to first test the spell. Deciding to try it immediately, he prepares to start the mental simulator before casting the spell again. Akihiro focuses and tries to imagine the spell he spoke earlier. As he freezes in thought, images suddenly flash in his mind. He sees himself from above, as if looking at a screen, and before him, just in the air, the spell is forming. Seeing what is happening, Akihiro realizes. The simulator is activated in his head, displaying the spellcasting process as if it were a game interface. Akihiro continues to watch the simulator in his imagination. At first, this experience overwhelms him. He feels a bit nauseous, as if he is watching an overly realistic three-dimensional picture. But despite the discomfort, he notices that inside the simulation he can move freely. The projected image of himself responds to actions. He moves and it follows him, changing perspective as he approaches or moves away from the magical target. Gradually, he understands. The simulator perfectly mirrors his movements, so he can analyze the place and behavior of the spell even before actually casting it. Akihiro focuses on the simulator and decides to execute the spell. A confirmation interface appears in his mind, an OK sign, and the Enter command. He presses it, and the spell activates exactly as in the simulation, confirming that the system works. Encouraged, he tries to check another mental image he once used when dealing with slime. But the simulator immediately issues a warning, saying the imagined result could be dangerous. Curious, he continues the test, keeping in mind the image of a fierce wolf hole. This time, the simulator completely rejects the attempt. An error message pops up, and Akihiro is left surprised by the system's reaction. Akihiro returns from the simulation a bit dizzy. Liz and Fia notice his condition and immediately check on him. He says he is fine, but is shocked that this was his first such experience. Understanding how the system works, he realizes why the mage he met earlier was able to assess the danger of his actions back then. Recalling, he understands. Others were grateful because, unknowingly, he had put himself in danger. Although relieved, the aftereffects of the mental simulation still cause nausea. Akihiro admits that he is still a complete novice, and most likely, time is needed before he gets used to using the simulator. Fia asks Akihiro where he learned magic. Liz explains he was taught by Bastia from the village elder's shop. Fia is shocked by the answer. She says that Bastia didn't even reach basic magical training and dropped out of school early. Realizing this, Akihiro finally understands why his magical knowledge seems so unusual. Akihiro wonders if it is dangerous to simply imagine magic and immediately throw it into reality. Fia praises him, saying it is impressive that he understood the idea right away, even though it was explained to him for only a few minutes. Liz happily asks if her explanation helped. Akihiro thanks her. When he thinks about it, Akihiro realizes that most people imagine spells as simple drawings, but his experience in another world allows him to see many more details. Therefore, the way he imagines magic is more realistic than what others envision, and Akihiro reflects on how his ability to visualize magic. This clearly appeared in him thanks to experience playing games in the previous world. In this world, people imagine spells in simple two-dimensional forms, but he naturally sees them in detailed three-dimensional images. Because of this, the spells he imagines look much more realistic and accurate. He also understands. Most people perceive the lack of experience as they have heard about advanced games. Because of this, their imagination becomes less concrete. Although data on dangerous magical feedbacks are vague and depend on the user's abilities, Akihiro begins to suspect that using mental simulations to predict and create spells can become an extremely powerful skill. With their gear ready, the group decides to test their strength by hunting goblins. Fia nods excitedly and rushes into battle, while Akihiro reminds. Liz also needs to gain experience and level up. When they head towards the forest, Akihiro keeps replaying the spell he used earlier in his mind and decides to be more cautious with magic for now. When they arrive, Fia examines the area and asks if this is Akihiro's usual hunting spot. Liz casually adds that she often comes here for Vasgras, so it turns out she already knows this place well. Akihiro notices two goblins sneaking through the forest. Seeing the chance, he decides, this is the perfect moment for an ambush. He quickly gives orders. Liz attacks the goblin on the right and strikes it with a hammer, directing all her strength into the body. The fairies order to be on alert and watch the surrounding area in case other monsters appear. Akihiro plans to back up Liz if something goes wrong. When the goblins come closer, he signals Liz to prepare and says to act immediately as soon as he gives the command. Akihiro prepares an attack, observing the goblins through a simulator in his imagination. The interface shows the targets clearly, but the overly bright visualization still shakes him a bit. Despite the discomfort, he analyzes the spell and adjusts the compression coefficient to make everything more stable. After checking the result in the simulation, the system sends a confirmation signal. Satisfied with the edits, Akihiro casts the spell and releases the attack exactly as planned. When Akihiro's attack hits, Liz rushes forward without hesitation. Thanks to the discovery he made, she jumps into the air and swings the hammer with all her might. A heavy blow hits the goblin with a crash, throwing it away, and the impact itself explodes, breaking through its body. Liz lands smoothly after the strike and finishes the ambush with one confident, decisive attack. The hammer blow lands perfectly. Liz crushes the goblin with a precise and powerful piercing strike. The monster instantly collapses. The body cannot withstand the blow. Akihiro looks amazed because the attack with one clean strike immediately ends the fight. When the goblin falls, Akihiro notes how skillfully Liz fights. Then they gather evidence of the murder. They cut off the monster's nose. Watching how calmly she deals with the consequences, Akihiro realizes, next to enemies, she has not a drop of hesitation. After having seen life and death, she behaves completely differently from ordinary people. When asked how she managed so well on her first hunt, Liz says she learned by watching her father's movements when he hunted. As the day drags on, Akihiro realizes Liz might be more suited to adventuring than he initially thought. Her natural fighting talent impresses him. Encouraged by their success, they continue hunting monsters. Later, they return to the guild and count their earnings. For the victory over 20 goblins, they receive a reward, and Liz also sells the bundles of Vasgras she collected. When everything is totaled, it comes to 640,000 wall. Akihiro suggests dividing the achievement reward into 4 parts, one for each, and one part goes to the party fund. When the reward is divided, each participant receives 160,000 wall. Fear is stunned with surprise. She says that when she hunts alone, she can only defeat about 3 goblins a day, and the amount they earned in one day sounds unbelievable. She also insists the plan worked because Akihiro did everything right, even declaring him the party leader. Liz objects to such a hasty decision. While Fia cheerfully ignores the complaint, she doesn't even worry about the teasing. Despite the jokes, Fia honestly admits at the party she feels much better. When she worked alone, she was often lonely and scared. Filled with energy, she excitedly runs ahead, waves emotionally goodbye for the day, and leaves Akihiro and Liz watching as she disappears. After parting with Fia, Akihiro tells Liz he plans to stop by the church. He explains he wants to pray for the party's safety and also ask God about something that has long troubled him. Liz understands and decides to go home first to help with dinner. They say goodbye and go their separate ways. When Akihiro approaches the church, he catches the thought that today's matter he wants to consider is about magic. He goes inside, where it is quiet, and sees a nun reading in the depths. Akihiro steps forward and kneels before the altar. Closing his eyes, he sincerely prays, asking God to answer the question that gnaws at his thoughts. He waits in silence inside the motionless chapel, wondering if someone will come to answer, while Akihiro prays in the church. Suddenly, a mysterious woman appears before him. She calmly says that an ordinary prayer would have been enough, and there was no need for him to come personally. At that very moment, Akihiro feels that something unusual has happened in the system connected to him. The woman introduces herself as Desha, the one who manages the treatment. Akihiro politely introduces himself and explains his concern. He admits that the power he can use in this world seems terrible. He is frightened that the knowledge he has could greatly affect the world if used carelessly. Desha tells Akihiro that the power itself is not dangerous. It all depends on who holds it. Even an ordinary kitchen knife can become deadly in the wrong hands. She compares his situation to the fact that only he in the whole world has powerful weapons, explaining. His fears are understandable but unnecessary. She trusts him to handle his power responsibly. Desha also explains that the rules of magic are constantly updated, and if his abilities ever become too influential, they will simply be revised. Then she says that she received a message from Electoa. Desha decides to give Akihiro a new skill and gently places her hand on his head. A warm sensation spreads through him as the blessing takes effect. Then she demonstrates this by temporarily disabling his sense of pain and orders him to check following her instructions. Akihiro cuts his own hand and is surprised to realize he really feels nothing. Akihiro deeply cuts his own hand with the blade, and while the pain is suppressed, blood flows in streams from the wound. Desha calmly states, the cut is so deep that the bone is already visible. He does not feel pain, but the sight itself terrifies him. Dessa calms him and orders him to imagine the wound closing as he runs the simulator in his mind. She explains, if he visualizes the process very vividly, he will be able to reproduce the healing with his magic. Akihiro focuses and visualizes the wound healing. In his mind, he sees the skin slowly closing while the simulator processes the image. After he confirms the result, he immediately performs the spell. The injury on his hand disappears, and it fully heals. He realizes that it worked. Akihiro celebrates his victory. He casts a healing spell. The wound on his hand gradually closes moment by moment. He is amazed at how quickly everything recovers. Dessier explains that this is called divine magic. External wounds can usually be healed, but healing inside the body is much more difficult because people find it hard to clearly imagine it. However, she notes, Akihiro's visualizations are extremely precise, so during healing magic he almost does not need adjustments. Dessier explains that divine magic does not require complex spell structures. If someone sincerely prays with heart and soul, requests can be heard and answered, so constructions and simulations are unnecessary. She adds, a formal sentence structure for divine magic exists, but almost never helps. Before leaving, Dessier apologizes for her brief visit. Although she was curious to learn about Earth, she must return to her duties, so she leaves Akihiro with the knowledge she shared. After Dessier disappears, the system confirms that the previous error has been corrected. Akihiro remains alone in the silence of the church. He realizes, if Liz and his companions are ever injured, he will be able to heal them, but for this, he must calmly imagine the wound itself to apply the power properly. After this, a message appears. He has just acquired the skill attribute Control Divine 1-8. Seeing its potential, Akihiro concludes that this ability is incredibly valuable. Akihiro returns home and greets Liz's mother, assuring her that after a day's work his body is fine. She reminds him, his efforts are known to everyone, and tells him to rest. Inside, Liz finishes preparing dinner and says that after their father's return, only setting the food on plates will remain. Before sitting at the table, Liz suggests practicing a little more. She wants to hone her defense with the shield, and Akihiro agrees to train with her until dinner time. Outside, Akihiro begins training Liz. She holds her shield and hammer while he explains the exercise. With a wooden stick, Akihiro tells her he will attack randomly and orders her to block the strikes with the shield. When the practice starts, Liz raises her shield and successfully blocks the incoming attack. While the training continues, Akihiro notices, Liz catches the strikes exactly in the center of her shield each time. Her reactions are precise, probably honed by experience hunting with a bow. Overwhelmed by her control, Akihiro explains, the shield can also be used for attack. If blocked correctly, she can knock away the opponent's weapon or break their stance. He encourages her to train and attack with the shield. Usually, after blocking, she strikes with the hammer, but the skill to counterattack with the shield will give her more options in battle. While Akihiro and Liz continue training, Liz's father returns home and notices them still practicing outside late. Liz happily greets him and says dinner is already prepared. Akihiro, still catching his breath, assures that he is fine, although he recently recovered from illness. Liz jokingly remarks that his exhaustion seems more like a lack of endurance than the effects of sickness. As soon as they enter, Liz's father is amazed to learn how much money Akihiro earns from his work as an adventurer. During dinner, Liz's father reminds them not to be arrogant and emphasizes that their success was only possible thanks to teamwork. Akihiro admits that Liz has shown much more talent as an adventurer than he expected, and says she could become an indispensable member of the group. Liz Shilly explains that she was only trying to copy the hunting techniques she saw her father use. When Akihiro praises her for how she defeated the goblin, the father listens, frozen in silent astonishment. Liz enthusiastically promises to work harder and earn even more, like an adventurer. Akihiro notes that her hunter experience clearly helps, while her father advises her not to stop and keep improving, but never lose vigilance. Later that night, after dinner, Akihiro tells her that she will no longer be able to keep improving. Akihiro helps wash the dishes, although Liz insists that it is her duty. During the conversation, he learns that every morning she wakes up early to go to the well for water and bring it home as part of her daily routine. Liz is worried that Akihiro might overwork himself, but he reassures her and says that tomorrow he will start helping. He will bring water. She insists that he rest and reminds him that traveling is already exhausting work. Later that same night, Akihiro reflects that his new life still gives him more freedom than his old job. On his own, he decides to organize everything he knows about magic, recalling how he managed to consult with the goddess and obtain divine power. Akihiro experiments with magic in his room. First, he imagines flying through the sky, but the attempt fails. Then he decides to check something simpler and instead takes a sheet of paper. Instead of relying on the simulator, he completely rejects it and works only with the image imagining how the wind pressure shapes the paper and presses it firmly. Focusing on the picture, he activates the spell and executes the command. Sheet of paper suddenly begins to hover slightly above the table. Akihiro watches in surprise as the paper gently glides through the air, then slowly descends back to the ground. He realizes that it worked and bursts with joy. He runs outside, eagerly wanting to test the magic further. Outside, Akihiro imagines the wind blowing from the soles of his feet as he visualizes his body flying through the air. Deciding to test it, he recreates the same image in his mind and activates magic. As soon as he takes a step forward, the force slightly lifts him off the ground. Akihiro understands. The magic works exactly as he imagined. He just needs to let go of the envisioned image and the effect disappears. Controlling the image, he can rush forward, backward, left, and right, and even spin, hovering in the air. To stop, he just needs to imagine moving in the opposite direction, and then he controls his direction in the sky. Akihiro glides through the air and realizes the sensation is similar to ice skating. He is captivated by the freedom of movement, train's speed, and direction control while flying over the trees, eventually getting used to it, and understanding that this ability can even be applied in a fight. For him, it is all completely new and exciting. Lizzie notices Akihiro outside late at night and calls to him from the window. He freezes in surprise as she approaches and asks if he is still training, and she explains that her mother was afraid he might collapse from exhaustion. Suddenly, Akihiro picks up Liz in his arms, uses magic, and rises into the air. They hover above the ground together. At first, Liz is overwhelmed by shock. Looking around with delight, she suddenly realizes they are really flying and bursts with joy. Akihiro explains that this ability is magic. When he holds Liz, she feels embarrassed, and she quietly admits that being so close to him makes her feel embarrassed. Noticing this, Akihiro also suddenly becomes awkward. Akihiro admits that he is still clumsy with flight magic and needs more practice to properly control it. He says the sensation is like sliding on ice and recalls how excitement gripped him. Liz praises him for hard work and dedication, calling him incredible. Smiling brightly, she promises to train even harder not to fall behind, and asks him to continue taking care of her. Akihiro understands that he has finally mastered the skills needed to survive in this world. Although his magic is still rough, its range and potential are growing extremely fast. Smiling, he encourages Liz to continue improving together. Holding her hand, he feels excitement about the new life. He realizes that in this other world he can chase what he desires, and this fills him with energy and determination. Lizu excitedly tells others that Akihiro lifted her into the air and flew while holding her in his arms. She describes the sensation as sliding over ice and says they even rose higher than the house itself, and her enthusiastic story amazes everyone listening. The next morning Liz excitedly tells everyone about the previous night, describing how Akihiro flew, carrying her through the air. Fia is interested and says she also wants to try if it is so much fun. Liz happily agrees. She says she felt as if a prince was carrying her and her heart was beating wildly. When Fia asks Akihiro if everything is all right, he notices that she is looking at him too intently. Akihiro understands. Fia is still just a child, she is only 15 years old. When she insists that she also wants to fly, he decides that instead of carrying her like the others, it would be more appropriate to let her ride on his back. Fia protests, this is a different treatment. Akihiro thinks that at such an age people in Japan usually are still studying, but doubts whether it is really right for such a young girl to fight. Akihiro admits that he felt uncomfortable letting two girls fight monsters. Liz and Fia say in surprise that they are already adults, explaining, they just enjoy earning money through their adventures. Hearing this, Akihiro understands and accepts their position, realizing his two childhood friends have grown more than he expected. Akihiro carries Fia on his back and flies through the air. Excited, she shouts that this is incredible and urges him to go faster, while he grumbles that she is shouting right into his ear. From below, Liz spotted the scene and froze in amazement. After a short ride, Akihiro lands and says that's it, they're done, but Fia immediately asks for more. As soon as the attraction ends, Fia quickly loses interest and grumbles that it's boring. Then Liz steps and she says she's had enough fun and that it's time to get back to work. Before leaving, Liz shyly addresses Akihiro and asks, next time could he carry her on his back too? Akihiro nods with a smile and jokes that it doesn't matter whether it's a ride on his back or even a hug. Liz beams with joy, but Fia quickly reminds them that the work is not over yet. When they leave together, Liz suddenly fills with energy and declares that they need to give their all and earn even more today. causing the others to look at her sudden enthusiasm with slight suspicion. After the hunt, the team finds out they earned almost as much as the previous day. Fia decides to stop by the general store after hearing that new accessories have already arrived, while Akihiro plans to drop by the blacksmith. Liz says goodbye to both and is curious about the new things, and her mood is such that she can't wait for the next day. Akihiro visited the blacksmith again and was greeted by the workshop owner. He asks to see several spears and also orders another item to be made for him. The blacksmith shows him several short spears, strong, resistant to deformation. Akihiro asks if he can test one, and the owner allows him to try it in the yard. Akihiro tests the spear in the yard and immediately realizes it is much heavier than he expected. This is the first time he has taken a real spear in his hands, and he cannot manage to wield it properly. After this, he asks the blacksmith about the price. The weapon costs 70,000 including the scabbards, so Akihiro immediately understands it is still quite expensive. Akihiro tries to snatch the spear and take it in his hands, but very quickly realizes that it is much heavier than he expected because, since this is his first time with a real spear, he pushes it with difficulty and admits he underestimated its weight. When he asks the price, the blacksmith says 70,000 and the sheath is included in this amount. Akihiro is shocked by the cost. He decides to buy the spear and thanks the blacksmith for the deal. And when asked about the other item he mentioned, Akihiro asks for a scroll and something to write on it. The cavalier tells him that the scroll and the pen lie on the table and allows him to use the room in the workshop to work. In the room, Akihiro begins to think about daily life in the village. He remembers people still draw water from wells by hand. Liz does this every morning, realizing how much effort it takes. He takes out his phone, looks at the image of the hand pump, and figures out how to recreate something similar from what is at hand. Using the phone as a reference, Akihiro studies the hand pump mechanism, examines the diagram, and begins sketching the design on scrolls, thinking the pump will greatly simplify how to draw water. After finishing everything, he apologizes for making the blacksmith wait and shows him the drawing. The blacksmith studies the sketch with interest, trying to understand the mechanism. The blacksmith studies the drawings and quickly understands the mechanism. Impressed, he explains, the pump works thanks to a system of valve and lever, simple yet ingenious. He says it would be a shame to keep such an invention to himself and suggests showing it to Visconti. If the rumors spread further, even the king might find out. Akihiro asks if there is something like a patent and explains to Kovalov. It gives the exclusive right to trade the invention because the Viscount rules in this land and his father is a duke. Koval says that making and selling the pump is a job for a large commercial enterprise because Akihiro cannot handle it alone. He suggests involving a trusted merchant and arranging for Akihiro to receive a share of the profits. He then adds that he has connections with the blacksmith workshop master and assures Akihiro that he will be treated fairly. Akihiro weighs everything, recalling how hard it is for Lisa's mother to get water every day. The blacksmith also says that the forge consumes a lot of water, so this invention will be useful for many people. Akihiro admits his real goal is simply to start the pump as soon as possible so that people can already use it. Kovali quickly understands the idea and says that the design is simple enough to be cast. He promises to make a prototype soon. Trusting him, Akihiro leaves the project in his hands and introduces himself. Kovalov Ness shakes his hand and says he will deliver the prototype to Astaz's home, where Akihiro currently lives. Enthusiastically, Ness declares that the invention will greatly help his mother, and jokes that Akihiro should now consider him part of the family. Leaving the shop, Akihiro thinks, if this pump becomes widespread, it can greatly ease people's daily lives. He is grateful that the prototype was made so quickly. But suddenly a thought gnaws at him. Won't problems arise if such technology is implemented? Not knowing what to do, he decides to ask the goddess directly and heads to the church early in the morning. Akihiro asks the goddess Electoa if the spread of the hand pump worldwide will cause problems. She reassures him, no, it will not cause problems. As she says, technologies of the same level will soon appear in this world anyway. Akihiro gratefully thanks her for the response even despite the fact that she is busy. Alec, by the way, says he is trying a snack called potato chips with a spicy strawberry flavor. This surprises Akihiro. He simply cannot imagine what it might taste like. After talking with Electo, Akihiro refuses her offer to try a strange snack and continues walking through the city, thinking that in Japan companies sometimes make very unusual combinations. As soon as he returns, he runs into Liz and Fia on the way back. Liz, excited, shows him the new bracelet she just bought and proudly asks if it is nice. Akihiro praises the bracelet and then Liz happily reveals that she bought the same one for him. Liz proudly shows the bracelet she bought for the festival and says they make her feel like a real team. Fia fell in love with this idea, and Akihiro thanks her, saying he will cherish her like the apple of his eye. Despite the relaxed atmosphere, Fia jokingly warns him they will never become his partners. Laughing, the whole company returns home together, even knowing that new challenges still lie ahead. Training starts as soon as the bell signals the beginning of movement. The team quickly storms forward, runs synchronously, and follows instructions. Focused and stubborn, they move together, maintaining an even pace until the exercise starts. While training continues, various signals begin to control movements, forcing everyone to react instantly and stay alert. The team adjusts direction with every sound, trying not to fall behind the pace. During the movement, the girl loses her balance and falls to the ground, hitting herself noticeably. But even so, training does not stop. It shows how intense and demanding it is. The group tries to keep their timing, and during the sessions it is visible. They falter and get lost. After falling, they regroup, support each other, and try to stay calm despite mistakes. It becomes clear, most of them have no experience working together, so coordination is difficult. But despite this, they accept the situation and understand that to improve, time is needed. They understand, training relies on simple, coordinated exercise, almost the same movements they learned in childhood, but now twice as demanding. Repetition begins to throw them off track, and fatigue becomes increasingly noticeable. But still they keep going forward for hours, slowly getting used to the rhythm. Over time, their coordination grows, and they begin to follow signals much more smoothly now together, in a harmonious group. Even after improvements, they understand, training without a real goal is like they are just moving together without meaning. The group begins to slow down, thinking about finishing the day. At that moment, the boy steps forward, maintains concentration, and suggests trying a more practical exercise that can truly help them in a real fight. He quickly builds a group, assigning roles. Some take defensive positions, while others act as enemies and simulate an attack. Using simple branches as weapons, they start the drills, rushing forward like monsters. The goal becomes clear. It is necessary to create more realistic conditions so they can train to react under pressure and work together. He explains, this drill is designed to recreate real tension, to make everyone feel as if they are under attack. The idea is to accustom them to stress and teach them to respond correctly in a real situation. As soon as they understand the goal, the group becomes more focused. Soon a large number of participants gather, all take on the role of enemies, and the exercise turns into a much larger and tougher simulation. A large pack playing the role of enemies suddenly bursts forward, shouting together. They launch an attack as a group. The pressure rises instantly, and the drilling moment turns into complete chaos. On the other side, the defenders tense up, gripping their weapons and taking a stance. Facing relentless pressure, they prepare to act under real stress. The clash begins when the attackers break in all at once. The roar and pressure hit immediately, loud and unstoppable. The defenders try to respond, but the assault hits harder than they expected. Even knowing it is just training, they twitch from the tension. The group begins to fall apart. They suddenly realize how hard it is to stay calm and maintain cohesion in a real situation. After the effort during the intense training, the team acknowledges the training proved effective and much more practical. The idea of simulating real pressure yields results. It helps to see their own weak points. They are ordered to switch roles and continue practicing, building endurance and improving coordination. Eventually, the session ends. Everyone is encouraged to reflect on their own strategies for future battles. After the training ends, the group heads back, finally able to breathe out and relax. He is called aside for a moment while the others begin to disperse. Meanwhile, the girls, still full of energy, decide to go together and come up with something to boost team interaction. They set off in good spirits. In contrast, he and the rest feel completely exhausted after the long training, noticing a striking difference in energy. Later, new information arrives about the goblin group being watched. The enemy is gathering more and more forces while approaching closer to the entrance of the forest. Posing a danger, their appearance is expected in just a few days. There is almost no time left for preparation. Meanwhile, reinforcements are already on the way but will arrive later, so there will be a pause during which the group will have to face the threat on their own. They understand the timing of reinforcements will affect everyone's morale, so the plan is to maintain fighting spirit by repeating that help is very close. But depending on how fast the enemy moves, they may have to hold the positions themselves for several hours. Even knowing this, he keeps his focus because he understands all they can do is give their best. The next day, they continue coordination training. They repeat the exercises, stop to analyze mistakes and correct them together. In front of them are several training scenarios against coordinated group formations, and with each attempt, it gets better and better. But still, tracking movements in the forest is difficult. There seem to be too many enemies around them. They notice that the number of enemies has increased compared to before, and this confirms the situation is worsening. During training, they focus on gradually reducing the number of enemies step by step, while maintaining control over the group. Having gone through the exercises, they decide to stop for a day. He reminds them to rest properly and not to overexert themselves, and ensures that everyone is ready for what comes next. That night he sits alone, looks at his weapon, and quietly thinks about what awaits him. Tension rises as he adjusts in his thoughts. Everything is decided and he accepts it. The next day will come the moment when they face the goblin horde. He checks his capabilities one last time, making sure he is as ready as possible. But the anxiety does not disappear. Too many unknowns. Realizing that he cannot control everything, he decides to rely on his weapons and training. Having little information about the enemy and a bunch of possible risks, he gathers all his strength of spirit, preparing for anything that might happen next. Late at night, she interrupts him. She comes for him, clearly nervous but stubborn. She asks to be let in, says there is something important she wants to talk about. He lets her in. They sit next to each other in silence, a bit tense, while she tries to compose herself and say what is on her mind. She brings up the moment when they first met and recalls how he suddenly made her a proposal then. The memory catches him by surprise. He is astonished, at a loss for words. She admits, even then she already understood that it was not serious. But the way she looks at it now shows that moment meant more to her than he had realized. She admits, over time she began to believe that this situation could become reality, especially after he stayed by her side and did not deny it in the presence of others. Even knowing the truth, she allowed herself to hold on to that thought and took it seriously. Understanding this, she apologizes, realizing that she might have taken advantage of his kindness. He quickly rejects her apology, stating that she is not to blame. Instead, he admits that it was he who acted carelessly and regrets how everything happened. He explains that when he ended up in that world, he was confused and it was she who helped him. Although the proposal caught him off guard, he understands. Her feelings are genuine and they truly made him happy. He admits, because of how he views things from his native world, he always considered her too young and therefore could not see her as a person to marry. Hearing this, she understands and says, that is exactly why she came that evening to talk to him, to look directly into those feelings. She gathers courage and confesses that her feelings will not change. Hearing this, he remains surprised. At first, she does not know how to react. Even after his explanation, she does not back down. Instead, she accepts the present and makes it clear. The future is still uncertain, leaving a quiet possibility between them. She says she wants a future where they can still do everything together. But right now, her strongest wish is for everyone to survive what is coming. Having said all she needed, she leaves with a calm farewell. He remained standing in place and was still going over every word she said in his head. When she goes out, he lifts his gaze to the night sky and barely reacts, replaying her words in his mind. He understands how strong she is. This moment helps him clear his thoughts. The anxiety that was pressing down on him recedes, and in its place comes steady determination. Although his heart still pounds wildly, he pulls himself together and is ready to face what lies ahead. The next morning, she greets everyone with a bright smile, dispelling the heavy moment and lightening the mood at the start of the day. They gather for breakfast, together sharing quiet moments before everything has started, and he responds and joins them at the table. After a quiet morning, they finish the meeting and prepare to leave. The usual atmosphere fades. Finally, the time to go has come. Before departure, others say they will move to a safer place while he and the team take on what lies ahead. A few words of carrion, they set off. Before leaving, an emotional farewell. They hug tightly and exchange quiet words of support. Everyone understands how dangerous this situation will be. She reminds him how hard it is to protect people during a great battle and asks him above all to stay safe. Even so, she still hopes that he will be able to protect Liz if possible, and believes in him until they part ways. She treats him like her own, asks him to return safe and sound, and he accepts this with quiet determination. When he leaves, he gives a firm promise to return, takes Lisa with him, and is stubbornly determined to come back home under any circumstances. While they head to the battlefield, he notices that she is smiling, as if she even rejoices in this moment. Although the situation is serious, it is clear she has not completely broken down. When asked, she says she is afraid. But the fact that she can walk beside him like this still makes her happy. It is clear how much that moment means to her. He understands. Although the situation is not celebrated, moving forward like this is more pleasant than just being afraid. Seeing her mood, he thinks she might be braver than him. They continue walking, and she says how happy she is to be beside him, turning the tension into a truly meaningful moment. Very soon they run into familiar faces. the mood changes a bit as they reunite before what is already approaching. They join others and quickly realize there are fewer mages than expected because most choose a different path after training. Still, everyone gathers, forming a small but determined group. While they prepare, the plan is explained. The reconnaissance squad is already leading the goblins to the battlefield. Everything has started moving, and they head toward the place where the battle will unfold. When they set out, the group generally remains calm, but tension still hangs in the air. She admits she is nervous even though she tries to pull herself together. He encourages everyone again, do everything you are capable of. The mood stays steady. Others respond with confidence. It is clear they are ready, although the situation this time is more serious than usual. They arrive at the battlefield and disperse, taking their positions and waiting for the enemy. Soon a signal arrives. Goblins are near. The leader gives clear orders to intercept them right there and hold the line, not letting them reach the village until reinforcements arrive. They quickly go over the plan once more, keeping the same roles as in the training. Training Thea provides support from behind, while defense and attack are at the front. The formation is simple but rigid. Once the fight begins, it cannot be rearranged. And while the knights are still at some distance, they understand they will have to hold the line themselves. As soon as everything is set up, a signal comes in. The enemy is already visible. Finally, the enemy appears and shows a massive horde, much larger than everyone expected. This one sight alone is enough to undermine the group. The numbers grow every time they take a closer look. It quickly becomes clear. Things are worse than planned. Hundreds of enemies are approaching him together. Turn the fight into something far more dangerous than they were prepared to endure. In front of a threatening number of enemies, the group's fighting spirit falls very quickly. The situation is worse than he expected, and it becomes clear. If things continue like this, they won't last long. Realizing this, he decides to act alone. Having told the others to stay behind, he dashed forward straight towards the enemy. He pushes himself forward, trying to intercept the course of the battle. He suddenly jumps forward and abuses everyone's attention, moving straight toward the enemy. While others freeze in shock, he aims at the nearest goblin and immediately launches an attack, knocking him down with one move. His sudden action turns the moment upside down. The tension dissipates as soon as the fight begins. He quickly knocks down several goblins in front of him, stops their advance, and carves a small passage. Satisfied with the result, he turns around and does not press further, understanding that this time he has already done enough. Returning, he calls the group. With a sharp movement, he captures their attention. After returning, he confidently tells the group how many enemies he has already killed, trying to raise their fighting spirit. His attitude changes the mood, and the situation seems more manageable seeing this. And the rest regain confidence and decide to move forward together, ready to engage in battle, not just wait. After confidence returns, the group finds their rhythm again and prepares to act together. The tension turns into determination. They take the right course again. They line up in battle formation, support units behind, attackers in front as soon as the command sounds. And finally, they begin a coordinated attack. They burst in together and quickly destroy several goblins at once. Coordination in working together ensured. The group begins to push back the enemies, pushing them forward. They take many enemies out of the fight and receive an order to retreat, even though very little time has passed. But they were only able to repel part of the horde. So after the retreat, the battle is not over yet. They feel the tension growing both in body and mind. And they understand they will not endure this for long. While they doubt whether they will hold out, another wave of enemies rolls in, and the situation becomes even worse. They identify the next wave as the main force, and the leader is most likely among them. Ahead lies a clash with a large vanguard group. They stick to the plan and are the first to set up defense, preparing to take the blow and not let themselves be overwhelmed. The second skirmish starts with both sides crashing into each other simultaneously. They hold formation, keep focus on defense, and stop the enemy's advance. Together they take up chopping goblins again, keep the line straight while gradually pushing them back. They get into rhythm, retreating and attacking alternately, maintaining formation. Since there are too many enemies, they do not finish them off. Instead, they weaken them by delivering coordinated strikes to keep the pressure under control. The fight drags on, and no matter how many they bring down, the enemies keep coming. The pressure begins to tear the team apart. The wounded appear, people collapse. It becomes clear they are being pressed gradually, step by step, and they cannot hold out. The front line keeps spinning faster and faster as soon as people start getting wounded. The situation becomes increasingly unstable. At the same time, some mages begin to weaken from excessive use of magic, clear signs of exhaustion, while the pressure relentlessly increases. The battle drags on, and the situation only worsens. Even when they try to keep their distance, the enemy quickly approaches again and slowly pressing pushes them back. With increasing time and mounting pressure, they are ordered to endure and hold positions until reinforcements arrive, surviving through short attacks and retreats. The group momentarily pushes back the goblins, then quickly retreats again, maintaining the rhythm of attack and withdrawal. Even after all these efforts, the leader understands. He has destroyed only about 100, and the battlefield is still teeming with enemies. They look ahead and see an even bigger wave approaching, realizing that the next clash will be against the main forces where the commander is likely waiting. In the absence of clear information about the enemy, tension only grows. The leader keeps a cool head and warns, it will only get harder, and orders everyone to prioritize defense and simply survive the next battle. A new fighter suddenly appears and approaches the group, recognizes the leader, and pays him respect. He explains that he used to be in the reserve forces, but now he has been transferred and he will fight under their command, joining right before the next big clash. The new fighter says he can handle close combat and is ready to help as needed. But understanding what is happening here is difficult. The leader accepts him but says simply, his job is only to support the front. He immediately makes it clear that against the main forces they can only hold on and endure, and asks if he is ready for this. The newcomer agrees without hesitation. The enemy's main forces are finally approaching the outskirts and tension rises as everyone prepares for the decisive clash. Even when fear grips the chest, the team quickly rallies, drains its last strength from it, and hopes to survive. The leader roars, full defense, while others raise the fighting spirit, believing, if you just hold on a little longer, then maybe you will really win. Everyone freezes when the real fight begins. They push away fear and decide to give everything they have. Even tired, they do not give up, they keep their spirit and encourage each other not to give up. Ready to meet the wave head-on and fight to the end, the main force finally moves into attack. The crowd of goblins rushes madly forward all together. The group holds firm, ready and gathered. The pressure suddenly breaks the scale when the main force crashes into them, pushing the front line far back. The girls cling to the ground and break away from the spot, but hold on. When the leader shouts for them to hold on, at that moment a new fighter bursts into the fight, cutting through the enemies and picking up their support. The new fighter moves quickly, and precisely mowing down goblins one by one with clean strikes. The leader immediately notices his skill, sees that he fights as if he has experience. Others are also impressed. He turns out to be stronger than expected and quickly reverses the course of the battle in their favor. The goblins suddenly begin to press harder, breaking through sections of the line and covering some fighters. The leader instantly realizes something has changed. These enemies are stronger than before, as if they have been reinforced. And because of this, the situation becomes even more dangerous. Reinforced goblins hit harder and faster, driving the vanguard into a desperate clash. With no time for stronger magic, they were driven to the edge. And it becomes clear, if nothing changes, the vanguard will collapse any moment now. Just as the line was about to break, the knights finally arrived and rushed onto the battlefield in an attack. Their sharp push and they begin to break through the enemies, giving the group a chance to fight back and secure the front. When the knights open the attack, everyone pushes together and drives the goblins back. But as soon as he secured the advantage, the order to retreat comes, and everyone quickly pulls back to prevent anyone from being overrun and to regroup for the next move. The knights burst forward on horseback, cutting diagonally through the ranks of goblins and scattering them in different directions. A sharp strike shakes the enemy line, their formation collapses, and they are driven back under the knight, which descends as an all-conquering force. When the knights pushed the enemy back, the group began to think the battle was already at the finish. Exhausted, they lowered their guard for a moment. But the leader remains alert, feels that something is still wrong and that the fight is not truly over. He keeps everyone vigilant and warns, do not relax. They think they have one end that is the most dangerous moment. Looking back, he sees, most of their group is already on the edge and barely holding on in the fight. If something else happens now, they won't be able to react, and just the thought of it makes the situation even worse. Suddenly, they feel a powerful presence cutting through the center of the enemy formation. The leader immediately understands what it is. The type of commander enemy finally appeared and is heading straight towards them. A goblin of the commander type suddenly jumps out from the center and rushes forward at full speed. She jumps far ahead of the entire army and crashes to the ground with a powerful strike. From the very beginning, it is clear that this is a completely different level, completely unlike the others, that the commander type lands and begins to emit a strange aura. The body pulses, as if alive with energy. The group sees itself enveloped in a red glow. They have never seen anything like it before, and immediately it is clear. This enemy is much more dangerous than they expected. They confirm it. The commander has already arrived standing alone in front of the troops. When it roars and does not take its eyes off them, the pressure rises instantly and it becomes clear. The fight is about to become much harder. The leader looks at the commander and wonders whether to leave everything to the knight's judgment, but realizes he still needs to know what it is capable of. Meanwhile, the squad is already completely exhausted and barely holding on, so it gets even worse. Feeling the threat, he orders everyone to be on alert and hold defensive positions while they decide what to do next. The group remains vigilant, ready to move at any moment, while the leader decides to go forward alone to scout the enemy. As he approaches, he notices something wrong. He aims his gaze at the commander and his weapon, and suddenly realizes there is something unusual about it. He looks closer and understands. The commander is gripping a huge cavalry sword, probably the very one taken from the fallen knight. Thanks to his ability, he determines, the enemy is reinforced and has resistance, making him even more dangerous. He instantly realizes that if that weapon hits, the strike could be fatal in one blow. He finds it hard to properly read the enemy. He understands that his ability is not working as it should. Because of this, the commander becomes even more unpredictable. Before he can recover, the commander suddenly lunges straight at him, instantly closing the distance and launching an attack with furious strength. The commander crashes in at a furious speed, in a moment catching him by surprise. He tries to use his ability, but it fails, confirming the enemy's resistance to magic. Now he understands. He cannot rely on this and will have to act differently. Realizing that magic will not work, he quickly retreats, dashing away at speed, and tries to keep distance from the commander. He decides to lure him out and buy time, and the enemy continuously chases him, not giving a second of rest. He understands the commander is not ordinary at all. He flees at explosive speed, hard to keep up with him. At that moment, part of the goblins begin to change direction, heading towards the weaker adventurers instead of the knights. They show that they strike at the simplest place to break through, and this makes the situation even worse. He understands the commander is too strong to handle alone and quickly makes a plan. He orders 2 comrades to block the attack with shields to create a small pause and escape with a counterattack using special weapons. Without even seeing ahead, he chooses to trust them and takes position so that everything works out. 2 girls enter and press into defense, raising shields to intercept the blow. It hits hard and barely holds, but they manage to stop him for a moment. It gives the leader just enough time to act, while the pressure continues to build even when both shields are raised. The commander rushes forward faster than expected and breaks through their defense. The leader realizes something is going wrong. The enemy is stronger and faster than they planned, so everything is at risk. The girl rushes forward with a shield, stepping ahead to protect the others while danger tightens the ring. Behind her, her comrades hesitate in place, unsure what to do. The boy, seeing all this, begins to panic, realizes that she is carrying everything on her own. Meanwhile, she does not slow down. She continues moving forward, steadily keeping course toward the threat, even though the risk is great. She blocks the attack with her shield and immediately counters with a strike. The enemy flies away from the force of the hit and crashes into the ground with a thud. The witness froze in shock at how quickly she overcomes him. She is hit and thrown away. Still in the air, she loses control, and then falls to the ground with a crash. Others freeze for a moment. They are overwhelmed by shock when they realize she has been destroyed. She lies on the ground, wounded and motionless after the blow. The boy rushed closer, panicking when he saw her condition. The monster returns to her fallen body and begins to approach stealthily, gripping its weapon as the distance disappears. He bares his teeth and prepares to attack. He lowers his head, blaming himself for what happened. Meanwhile, the monster approaches ever closer. He understands that at the critical moment he lost control. He composes himself, clears his thoughts, and pushes away panic. He decides to save her as the first priority, and then firmly resolves to stop the fight at any cost. He lunges forward with a weapon. The distance disappears in an instant. The monster reacts late. It manages to strike, now fully determined to take him down. He grips the spear even tighter and channels precise force through it. When something abnormal triggers in his mind, he dismisses it and focuses on forming the attack, pushing power forward to finish the strike. When he charges into attack, system messages pour down on him like a river. They give him temporary skills and unlock new data. He freezes for a moment, noticing the changes, because his abilities are already starting to reformat right in the middle of the fight. He launches an attack and sends a devastating blow forward. The blow strikes directly at the monster, pierces it through, and knocks it down in one attack. After the attack, he immediately rushes to her. Others watch from afar. It is unclear whether it worked while she lies unconscious on the ground. The creature's body tore and ripped a huge hole in its chest, throwing the monster back. The dust scattered across the ground. The youth, without slowing down, rushed forward slid across the battlefield at high speed until he reached the fallen enemy. After making sure the creature was no longer able to react, he drew his sword and, staying alert, stood in front of the destroyed body. With one bloody blow of the creature's head cut in two right in the heat of battle. Blood and fragments scattered in the air as the young man held the weapon raised before the last enemies. Holding the head of the defeated commander in his hands, he declared victory after destroying the leader of these creatures. After the commander's defeat, the rest of the creatures became confused and began retreating from the battlefield. Soon a message arrived, confirming that the target was eliminated and the error was corrected. As soon as they realized they had won, the travelers immediately began to celebrate. Everyone rejoiced at the end of the battle, and Akihiro finally received recognition for destroying the enemy leader. With the victory already achieved, the travelers advanced to surround the remaining goblins. Gasping after the sprint, the young man received a new notification confirmation of the transfer of abilities from the defeated commander. After the battle, the travelers noticed that the girl was wounded and lying on the ground. The young man examined her wounds and concluded that her arm was broken, in addition to the possibility of internal injuries caused by the blow. Regaining consciousness, the girl explained that she instinctively raised her shield before the strike. When she woke up, her companions approached with relief, while she herself was still trying to comprehend what was happening around her. Having confirmed that she was alive, the young man immediately ran up and pressed her to himself, hugging tightly. Relieved after the fight, he simply thanked that Liz was safe, but still stunned by the situation, the young man realized he was trembling, holding Liz in his arms. In his embrace, he froze, gripped by the fear of almost losing her. During the battle, he scolded her for exposing herself to danger like that. After Liz heard that everyone survived and that the goblin commander was defeated, she finally calmed down. Embracing the young man, she confessed that she never thought she could die. Just believe that as long as she can endure, the hero will find a way to save everyone and bring them back together. The young man thanked Liz for making their victory possible and promised, tomorrow everyone will return alive. Hearing those words, she finally smiled with relief, while the rest of the team excitedly celebrated the end of the fight. After the battle, the young man felt the full weight of exhaustion accumulated from continuous use of large-scale magic. While the travelers celebrated the victory, the remnants of the goblins, who fled in panic without their commander to lead them, were finished off by the knights. Quietly observing the battlefield, the young man realized that they had finally won and everyone was still alive. Surrounded by his comrades, he simply felt relief as soon as he heard the request for everyone to return home together. After the battle, Liz extended her hand to the young man and asked everyone to return home together. Later, already in front of the house, the exhausted company turned back and quietly went inside, so that they would not wake those who were still sleeping. When the group returned home after the battle, they were warmly welcomed and everyone celebrated their safe return. The food that had already been prepared for them in large quantities was waiting for them, and the heavy atmosphere left after the fight finally dissipated. After the battle that saved them, everyone gathered around the table to celebrate. Among drinks, meat, and a pile of food, the group finally managed to relax, celebrating both the victory and the fact that everyone returned alive. During the celebration, the group excitedly buzzed about the fight against the goblin commander. When they tried to turn the skirmish into a great heroic feat, the young man insisted that everything happened by accident, but quickly reminded the reward must be shared equally among all four. While they talked during the celebration, the group noticed that many goblins were still hidden in the forest. Yet still, everyone lit up when they realized that they would continue to receive missions and rewards as true adventurers. While the whole company laughed and celebrated at the table, the young man simply sighed with relief. Everyone returned alive. Exhausted after the entire battle, he finally fell into a deep sleep that very night. The next day, the group found out the fight was over, no deaths despite severe injuries. Moreover, the knights praised the young man's achievements and promised to increase rewards for future missions against goblins. After the victory, the young man received praise for the fight and took the damaged spear for repair. During the conversation, he also learned that information about that battle had already reached the local nobles. After all this fuss, the young man was walking through the city and suddenly realized life was slowly beginning to change. Even when all those thoughts were swirling in his head, he still wanted to achieve his goals in this world, at that moment, his greatest anxiety finally boiled down to getting the chance to soak in a hot bath. As he slowly moved forward in this new world, the young man felt that he was finally changing his own reality. At the same time, Liz was celebrating, having noticed that problems and attacks in the region were gradually fading away. After several days of fighting, the group realized the forest was still scattered with a bunch of goblins. Having no other choice, they decided once again to set up camp. During a conversation by the campfire, Lot revealed that he was 25 years old and came from a family of merchants, and that he became an adventurer after the battle. He also decided to officially join the group, and even refused part of the reward for the victory over the goblin commander. During the conversation, the group realized Lot comes from a wealthy merchant family, yet he remains humble and refuses praise for the fight. The announcement instantly caught the girls' attention, forcing them to look at him differently. While they were chatting by the fire, Fia began asking about Lot's life as a traveler and stories about his wealthy family. Noticing that Liz teased the girl by reminding her that not long ago, she had shown interest in the hero. Having received the reward for the mission, the young man was surprised by a message that came directly from the Viscount. The invitation ordered him to appear at the noble estate as soon as possible, and the whole company froze in shock at the sudden summons. A few days later, the young man set off on a carriage journey to Viscount City after the unexpected call. Observing the huge city from afar, he was still trying to understand why he was called so suddenly. He had just arrived in Viscount City. The young man got out of the carriage and headed toward the huge gates surrounded by walls and towers. Standing before a place much larger than he had imagined, he began to realize the scale of the region to which he was summoned. When he entered the city, the young man was amazed by the giant stone walls and began to imagine the level of technology here. Soon, he introduced himself to the guards and confirmed that he was summoned directly by the Viscount himself. While he waited outside, the young man began to suspect that the summons might mean something serious. Soon a luxurious carriage appeared, and one of the Viscount's servants arrived to personally escort him to the noble residence. While the luxurious carriage was carrying the young man to the Viscount's estate, he became increasingly nervous from the special treatment he was receiving. Not knowing the real reason for the summons, he could only guess what such an important person might want from him. As soon as the young man arrived at the Viscount's estate, he was shaken with amazement. He was stunned by the scale and luxury of the huge noble estate. As he was led through the elegant corridors, he realized everything here was much grander than he had imagined. As soon as the young man entered the Viscount's chambers, he was immediately seized by wild nervousness and he instantly knelt before the nobility. Not daring to even look directly, he tried to show them the utmost possible respect, until he was allowed to raise his head. Standing in front of Vi's account, the young man finally revealed the identity of the man who controlled the entire region. He was still shaken by the situation. He tried to behave with maximum respect, but the nobleman himself spoke more easily and allowed him to relax a little. During the conversation, Vic began to behave much more favorably towards the young man after finding out. They were both the same age. But after some time, the atmosphere changed sharply when the noble revealed. The real purpose of the summons was not punishment, but something entirely different. Without unnecessary talk, the Viscount immediately admitted. He wanted to raise the young man to the status of baron and was shocked by the unexpected proposal. He could hardly believe what he was seeing, trying to understand why. Someone like him was chosen to receive a noble title. Viscount explained that he intended to create a new residential district and wanted to appoint the young man to manage the development of this territory. The plan involved exploring iron mines, building villages, and gradually expanding the territory over the years, and even offering special privileges to make this project possible. The Viscount explained that in that country, noble titles functioned more as administrative positions than as unconditional privileges. As soon as he heard about the opportunity to develop the region, increase production, and earn the respect of the people, the young man began to realize the full extent of the responsibility placed upon him. Hearing that the young man was developing ideas about irrigation and increasing production through water pumps, the Viscount realized he thinks like a true ruler. While the country saw him only as a person strong in war against goblins, the noble began to believe. In the future, he would be able to transform that region. The Viscount asked the young man to carefully consider the proposal to govern that territory in the future. Even hesitating before such a great responsibility, he was allowed to take this offer with him and decide by the end of the year. Leaving the Viscount's estate, the young man decided that he would seriously consider the offer to become a nobleman. While he was riding back, he began to think that a stable position could fundamentally change both his future and Liz's future. While he was pondering the Viscount's offer, the young man realized if he accepted this position, his relationship with Liz would also completely change. If he took her with him to that territory, everyone around would see them as a real couple, and those words about her staying by his side forever were etched into his memory. After days of shaking in the carriage, the young man finally returned home completely exhausted. Everyone talked about the fatigue from the long journey, but he kept thinking. Maybe it was time to make a decision that from that moment would change his life. Returning from the trip, the young man suddenly fell into a deep sleep from extreme exhaustion. When Liz came in to call him to dinner, she shuddered hearing him quietly mumble her name in his sleep. Continuing to sleep, the young man quietly murmured that he wanted to move forward together with Liz. Hearing those words, she froze silently, struck by the sincere feelings that burst out of him while he was sleeping. As soon as she heard the young man repeat her name in his sleep, Liz froze completely speechless from those unexpected words. Sitting by the bed, she tried to comprehend the true meaning of his desire not to leave her side. Just waking up and seeing Liz by the bed, the still confused young man for a moment believed that she had just returned home. While trying to figure out the situation, Liz felt increasingly overwhelmed with shame as she recalled the words he spoke while sleeping. Not fully understanding Liz's strange reaction, the young man went downstairs to eat with the rest of the family. After a quiet dinner, he soon returned again to the unexpected visit he himself had made to the Viscount. When asked about his conversation with the Viscount, the young man decided to hide the details for a while and simply said that he would explain everything later. Although others were curious, they accepted his answer and he began to talk about the city and the huge castle he had visited. Before leaving, Liz asked if he would participate in the next goblin hunt. The young man explained that he needed to deal with matters at the guild, and then he suggested that the two of them meet after the mission, leaving the girl completely confused by the unexpected invitation. Agreeing to meet the next day, the two quietly said goodbye before sleep. Alone in her room, Liz could not stop thinking about the unexpected invitation and began to wonder what true feelings he might have. Liz spent the whole night turning over in her head the words she felt, while he was sleeping between shame and anticipation. She began to wonder if it was a confession, and at the same time feverishly tried to convince herself that it was not. Left alone at night, the young man kept thinking and could not decide to accept or refuse the Viscount's offer. He knew if he set out for that new territory, Liz would definitely want to go with him, but he still was not sure he could give her a safe life in an unfamiliar land. Alone with his own thoughts, the young man began to drown in the fear of losing Liz someday, although he himself wanted to stay by her side. Part of him still believed feelings between two people can suddenly disappear and then everything would eventually end. Well, all right. Still sorting out his own feelings, the young man admitted, dealing with emotions is much harder than with any rational problem. The next morning, his companions noticed that he was still hiding the real reason for his conversation with the Viscount. While the team tried to find out the reason for the Viscount's summons, everyone had already began to build theories about possible important missions for the kingdom. Even without knowing the truth, his comrades imagined that the young man might finally receive some special task related to the country. While his companions continued to make theories, a version arose that the young man, probably he might be recruited by the Order of Knights. As soon as he heard this, the idea that he might eventually end up far away from the group worried Lisa, until, while she listened to theories about the Order of Knights, Liz began to connect them with the words Hiro spoke in his sleep. For the first time she realized, maybe he really wanted to stay close, and the thought of losing him scared her so much that her heart clenched. While Hiro was talking with the captain of the Order of Knights, Liz couldn't find peace outside and tried to convince herself not to acknowledge the feelings that had already begun to grow inside. At that very moment, the captain made it clear. The one who shows the level of hero in that battle would hardly be ignored by the kingdom's knights. As soon as Liz met Hiro after his conversation with the knights, she immediately noticed the strange atmosphere surrounding him. Without hiding her anxiety, she directly asked if he really was thinking of leaving. Noticing Liz's concern, the young man admitted that he also intended to talk to her that very day. They sat side by side in silencing, both already understood. From this moment, their future would change. During the conversation, the young man finally admitted the Viscount wanted to make him a baron and entrust him with a new territory. Realizing the revelation, Liz suddenly understood. Because of that decision, his future could completely change. The young man admitted, if he agrees to the Viscount's offer, he will have to leave this home and move to a new territory. Realizing this, Liz understood. Separation can really happen, but she still felt that she had no right to ask to stay by his side. The hero finally gathered his courage. He knelt before Liz and decided to make an official request. He confessed that he was in love with her, that he did not want to be separated from her, and that he wanted to take her with him to a new territory. When Liz heard those unexpected words, she was completely stunned. Not waiting for an immediate answer, the hero began to get nervous and thought that maybe Liz had rejected his feelings. But completely overwhelmed by emotions, she eventually began to cry and revealed What she had thought, the hero would leave her and go alone to a distant place. When the hero tried to understand her reaction, he realized how much Liz was suffering just from the very thought that they would be separated. The hero hugged Liz tightly and promised that he would never leave her behind, saying that from now on he wanted her to always be near. He also apologized for hiding his feelings and keeping everything in this uncertainty for so long. Crying with relief, Liz confessed that she was happy and replied that she also wanted to continue being close. Liz declared that she wanted to walk beside him forever. Her joy overflowed as she tightly embraced his body. Finally without fear that she would be abandoned. In the silence, Hiro simply thanked her, feeling how the weight of his uncertainty slowly disappeared in this shared moment between the two of them. After they finally confirmed their feelings, Liz, both happy and a little embarrassed, said that they would also have to tell their parents about it. The hero calmly agreed. In the evening at dinner, they would talk about it. When they got home, Liz entered with a bright and excited smile, still carried within her the joy of the confession they had just shared a moment ago. Hiro opened the door right behind her, but as soon as he noticed something strange in the air, his face immediately changed. An unusual silence covered the place, and he was forced to stop for a moment, and began to search with his eyes, looking around cautiously, feeling that something was wrong. The hero realized that he had been carried into a white and empty space, exactly like the place where he found himself when he first arrived in this world. While he was trying to figure out the situation, two figures appeared in the distance, and he heard someone apologize before they approached him. The two figures introduced themselves as members of what is called the data center, and apologized for the inconvenience, saying that this time they wanted to speak with Hiro directly. They explained that the meeting was requested by Lois as an important client of the organization. The hero was confused. These people were completely different from the data center workers he knew before he came to this world. One of the men began to excessively praise the hero, boasting that he was deeply impressed to see a person from a less developed world who managed to survive, withstand numerous dangers, and continued to move forward in this world. He also praised the hero's courage, stating that he admired how he faced this place and how he contributed to the growth of the local civilization. And during the speech, he allowed himself to be completely overwhelmed by a wave of emotions. The man said that his name was Lois, and explained that he worked for Sulo Timpt Broadcasting Station, the very station that monitors and evaluates everything happening in this world. Excitedly, he said that the hero's popularity was rapidly growing, and said that he already knew a lot about him, which only made the whole absurd situation even more confusing for Hiro. The hero realized, Lois looks exactly like that person from the entertainment industry whom he usually does not trust. Yet despite this, they seem to know almost everything about his situation, as if they were even taller than the gods of that world. And then Lois said that she understood his confusion and declared she would briefly explain the whole situation to him. The second man revealed that he has administrative rights over that server and explained. The world where Hiro lives is part of a giant system managed within a data center. According to him, there are many other similar worlds operating the same way. When he heard all this, Hiro began to understand. These people existed on a level far higher even than the gods of this universe. The administrators explained that while observing many different worlds, they became interested in the idea of transferring a person from one world to another. The proposal was finally approved as an experiment to study the impact of that mobility between worlds. After a strict selection, Hiro was chosen to participate in the project and he became extremely valuable for their research. Lois explained that Hiro was chosen precisely because he is an ordinary person Somion who does not try to change the world by force, does not act driven by exaggerated ambitions, but simply wants to help those around him. According to her, at first Hiro had doubts, but now the project was considered incredibly successful. Bathing in exaggerated praise from the two, the hero still could not properly understand why they were making a truly grand spectacle out of his life. While the two of them commented on their favorite scenes from Hiro's adventures, as if discussing an entertainment show, he began to feel immense discomfort from the whole situation. Then Lois admitted that this visit was arranged without the permission of the administrators responsible for that world, and asked Hiro to keep everything secret. Hearing this, Hiro realized that even the gods or operators from that universe did not know about their existence. Lois suggested Hiro imagine all the chaos that would happen if he told the gods about that secret conversation and think about it. Hiro understood. Through him, the gods would most likely desperately try to contact even higher administrators. But immediately after, his own thoughts seemed strange to him, as if at that very moment someone was interfering with his mind. Feeling a sharp pain in his head, Hiro realized something very bad was happening to him. The memory of the conversation was still clear, but it seemed as if part of his memories were forcibly blocked every time he tried to think about certain topics. In anger and fear, he concluded that these two directly controlled his thoughts. Even shaken by manipulations of his own memory, Hiro understood. This was no joke, and he refused the idea of telling everything to the gods. Then he demanded that the two lift the ban from his mind, and quickly asked why he was called here. Lois replied that this conversation was taking place outside the world's observation zone, and promised. Even this memory would be partially hidden from the gods, before finally starting to explain the real reason for that. The meeting. The administrators finally revealed the true purpose of that meeting. According to them, as soon as Hiro arrived in another world, the audience and popularity of the content skyrocketed, and everything before that was now considered the first season of the story. Now the viewers wanted even bigger changes. Therefore, Lois announced that the time had come to start the second season, and said that the two of them had come to offer Hiro 3 different options for how he should proceed. The administrators offered Hiro the first option, to completely erase his memories of that world and return to Earth to resume his normal life. They also assured him that after his disappearance, the integrity of that world would be preserved so that it would not affect the story in the eyes of the viewers. The second option would allow Hiro to stay in that world, but with the ability to freely travel between it and Earth through a private network. The third option would expand this idea even further with a future family, and would allow him to lead a double life between the two worlds. The administrators explained, to maintain consistency between the two worlds, they would even change the memories of Hiro's family. Hearing this, Hiro's family would be able to maintain consistency between the two worlds. Hiro immediately rejected the proposal. He was filled with rage at the thought that his memories would be tried to be adjusted again, and he immediately understood. These decisions were essentially disguised pressure. The hero tried to suggest a fourth option for him and Liz to return to Earth together. But the administrators immediately rejected this idea, stating that it would bring them no benefit. Then Lois revealed his true vision, and said that all living things exist only as objects of observation and entertainmento satisfy someone's happiness. The hero realized, Lois sees people only as expendable material for entertainment as those who are incapable of truly caring for others. Even striving to gain more time to think and find a way out of that situation, he ultimately found himself under pressure from the administration. Administrators who demanded an immediate response, while the hero Ria was being pressured to make a decision. Realizing that choosing any of the proposals meant putting both himself and Liz at risk in the future, in despair and under pressure from the administrators, he finally understood what he truly desired above all: to stay close to Liz. The hero decided to return to Earth because he could not trust the administrators in anything. But the thought of parting with Liz still made his heart hesitate, and it became clear that this choice was by no means simple for him. At the very last moment, Hiro began to doubt his own decision. Memories of Lisa's words and her smile about how she wants to stay by his side forever brought despair to his heart. Realizing how heavy this moment was, too late, he could no longer help but think. Did he just make a terrible mistake? Hearing the name Liz, which echoed in his head for the last time, Hiro finally returned to Earth. When he opened his eyes, he was already back to his usual life, putting on formal clothes and walking through the cold at the end of the year, as if a full stop had already been placed on everything. Even when he tried to move forward and even thought about visiting his parents after so many years, there was still an emptiness in his chest, as if something extremely important was left behind. Even without being able to clearly remember that other world, Hiro began to see in his dreams a golden-haired girl who swayed in the wind. He could not make out her face and did not understand who she was, but every time he woke up, he felt an inexplicable pain in his chest, as if he had lost someone incredibly important. Later, the hero decided to visit his parents in their house in the village near the end of the year. On the way, he collapsed exhausted in the car and eventually fell asleep, while the children excitedly chattered about the deer they had seen earlier. Even when relatives were nearby and life seemed ordinary, Hiro still carried an empty and distant feeling inside. During a trip with his family to a mountain resort with hot springs, Hiro was again tormented by dreams about that mysterious blonde girl. Even without having time to recall her face, every time he thought about her, he felt a sharp, oppressive unease, as if someone incredibly important had been torn from his life. Seeing a huge stuffed boar, the hero suddenly experienced a strange déjà vu, as if he had dealt with the same creature before. Even without a clear memory, only a vague recollection, it left him anxious again. While his family was sure it was just a forgotten childhood memory. Even while he was resting in the hot baths with his family, Hiro could not drive away that strange emptiness. confused memories, and an inexplicable nostalgia that flared up in him, especially after he saw Boar made. Hiro realized something important was missing in his life even without him exactly knowing what it was. After the family trip, the hero continued trying to behave normally, but the anxiety and emptiness inside him only kept growing. Having said goodbye to his relatives, he returned home and was even thinking about seeking medical help, but he did not understand that these strange feelings were only echoes of memories that had been erased. Returning to the empty apartment, Hiro was overwhelmed by an incomprehensible loneliness. Although he had lived alone for years, suddenly everything became strange and painful, as if someone who was supposed to be near had disappeared from his life. To distract his thoughts, the hero decided to cook for himself what his family had given him: trout. He quietly cooked and just as silently ate in the empty apartment inside. He continued living an ordinary life on the surface, not understanding that the constant feeling of loneliness came from lost memories of someone who once held an important place in his heart. Even trying to hold on and live as usual, the hero eventually cried while eating the trout he had cooked himself. He could not understand where this pain in his chest came from. Mixed feelings and fear for his own mental state made him try to convince himself it was enough just to rest and distract his thoughts with a new game, but the erased memories of Liz still unconsciously painfully echoed in his heart. Even when he tried to distract himself with games, the hero still could not find peace. As soon as goblins appeared in the game, a strange panic grew inside him, as if these creatures had awakened forgotten memories. He could not understand why he was so shaken by something so simple, so he decided to end the night with sleep. But the emptiness and discomfort still kept growing inside him. At work, the hero personally met a foreign client named Mitchell during an important meeting. He had never seen this man before, but a strong feeling of nostalgia began to rise inside him again. Hiro became more and more confused each time. The more often these strange feelings surged, the stronger he felt. Someone erased something important from his memory. Fragmented memories tormented the hero day after day. Images of goblins, boars, and a blonde woman flashed in his mind without any explanation, and with each day he became increasingly mentally exhausted. Confident that something was wrong with his head, Hiro decided to register at the hospital as soon as possible, and at the same time tried to continue living as usual, maintaining his routine normally. Even exhausted and mentally shattered, the hero continued to stick to his usual schedule. Waking up early for another workday, he noticed how his life seemed stuck in an empty, unchanging routine, while erased memories and a constant feeling of loss quietly grew inside him. As soon as Hiro entered work, a strange anxiety gripped him while he looked at the office door. Although he did this every day, it seemed to him as if he was reliving a moment from the past, as if some forgotten memory was trying to surface. From the increasingly strong feeling of déjà vu, Hiro began to guess. His memory had not yet completely erased that other world. As soon as he crossed the office door, the hero found himself again in an empty white space between worlds. Stunned, he saw the door disappear behind him, and before his eyes appeared a mysterious message. A request for confirmation had arrived to grant the scientist an ability. Not understanding what was happening, Hiro realized the impossible had started again. In the white void, the hero began receiving automatic responses from a being named Interface, the one who sends people to another world. When he asked for an explanation of what was happening to him, he was immediately given new abilities, including the ability to recognize and extract information. Even in despair and confusion, Hiro understood. He had been reconnected to the system of that mysterious world. Even when Hiro tried to resist and asked to be returned to ordinary life, the interface met him only with a cold refusal and wished him a good journey. As soon as the hero tried to resist, all his erased memories returned instantly together. He finally remembered Liz's adventures in another world and those feelings that disappeared along with the memory. Stunned by emotions, he called her name as soon as he realized the emptiness in his heart was nothing else but her absence. A little later, a new message appeared before him, meeting him again and making it clear that he was pulled into another world again. Returning to another world, the hero appeared right in front of Liz's house and could not believe that she was really here again. He froze for a few seconds until he heard her voice. As soon as Liz approached him with concern, the hero finally confirmed that it was all real and hugged her tightly, crying, saying her name again and again, and apologizing for leaving, still holding Liz tightly. The hero burst into tears as soon as he admitted. He ran away even after she said she wanted to stay close. He felt guilty because he decided to leave and apologized again and again. And Liz, not even fully understanding what had happened, simply held him close and said that everything would be fine. When he finally calmed down, Hiro realized he had scared everyone by appearing like that in tears. He was ashamed that he had lost control and did not hold back his emotions, so he quickly pulled himself together, but soon it became clear he still had something very important to say, in front of Liz and her parents. Hiro decided that he had to say everything seriously about his feelings and about what had happened to him. While they were talking face to face, Liz said that later she wanted to hear the reason why Hiro appeared crying like that, and to make it clear that she would not let it go. During dinner with her family, Hiro told them that the Viscount had made him an offer to become a baron, and that he had found a new city. The news immediately stunned everyone, as if Hiro's life in this world was about to change again. During the conversation with Liz's family, Hiro explained he would agree to the offer to become a baron only on the condition that Liz could continue to be by his side. Without hesitation, Liz declared that her decision was already made, and that she would follow Hiro regardless of who he became, an adventurer or a nobleman. Even when her father shuddered at the thought of his daughter entering the nobility, he eventually gave his consent, asking only that Hiro protect her as best as he could. Watching Liz and her family smile, Hiro vowed to himself he would never leave her again like he once did. But as soon as he remembered his sudden appearance in that world, he realized there was something strange behind all this. Before returning, he had made some kind of contract with the interface. The feeling that something was still hidden in this story began to grow inside him again. Hiro understood. Lois had appeared before him again. Not hiding his discomfort, he listened as the man announced. Due to client pressure, Hiro was chosen for a new process called redesign. Design? This news immediately made it clear. His story in this world was not over yet. Someone was still conducting all the manipulations behind the scenes. Louis explained that after turning several worlds into candidates for that project, almost all selected participants later either panicked or refused to continue from the very beginning. According to him, Hiro was one of the few who managed to act rationally. Praising the crazy success that Hiro brought to both the audience and sponsors, Lois also recalled the failed cases with other participants when they went insane and died or had to be urgently extracted from their worlds. Yet even hearing all this, Hiro showed no interest at all in the man's explanations. Hiro realized the fourth proposal, where he and Liz could return to Earth together, was ultimately accepted by the administrators. Still, Lois warned that scientific institutions would need about 12 more years of observation before this would happen. As soon as he said this, he immediately handed over the official contract regarding the new proposal. Once Hiro heard this, he finally began to see a chance to live together with Liz in two worlds. The contract stated that Hiro, Liz, and their future children would be able to freely travel between the two worlds through a private network created especially for them. They would also be allowed to take material things with them and receive knowledge from Earth to develop that world. Despite this, memories would still have to be partially adjusted to maintain the flow of civilization. The document also clearly stated, if Hiro died in that world, he would not be able to return. Even death on Earth could be canceled as a miraculous survival. Even when nervous, Hiro understood they had significantly missed the conditions. After Hiro waited for the analysis of the entire contract, he realized there were no hidden clauses or visible traps. Lois assured that once the agreement was completed and they returned to Earth, all official documentation for Liz and their future children was already prepared. Even continuing to distrust Lois's suspicious nature, Hiro eventually agreed to sign the contract. The terms stipulated everything would be fulfilled in 15 years, which Hiro could barely imagine how it would be. As soon as the contract was finalized, Lois celebrated by saying that the audience would explode when they announced Hiro's return as the winner in the recount. Even while saying goodbye excitedly, he long could not let go of the thought that the man was suspicious, right until the very end. While watching Lois leave, still confused, he suddenly heard the name Roy again in his head. After the meeting, Liz entered the room and saw that Hiro was deep in thought. As soon as she heard the name Roy, she asked if it was the same person he had met in the city. Hiro tried to brush it off. He simply said that Roy is a man he knew well. Just after that, Liz decided to ask what had been bothering her since their very meeting. Why Hiro cried immediately upon returning to her. Hiro admitted that he could not properly explain the reason, but he felt, once he had betrayed Liz. Because of this, when he saw her again, it seemed to him that he had to apologize immediately. Liz was surprised by this strange answer. Even without fully understanding it, she felt Hiro truly carried deep regret within himself. Hiro said that he had thought everything over and swore he would never again make a decision that could hurt Liz while she was happy beside him. Even without fully understanding what was happening, Liz decided to forgive, only asking that he never repeat such a thing again. Relief sounded in her words, and Hiro finally hugged Liz tightly, sincerely thanking her. Hugging Liz, Hiro promised that he would never let her go again. When he realized what romantic atmosphere he himself had created, he sharply pulled away. Leah. Liz, completely embarrassed, despite her nervousness, eventually reminded him that now they were officially in love, though for a moment she thought Hiro was about to kiss her. Later, Liz, still blushing, reminded Hiro that now they were engaged and lovers, so these kisses, or even what happens next, should be something natural between them. Carefully approaching closer, she admitted that she had long dreamed of experiencing such moments beside him. Hiro remained completely silent due to Liz's unexpectedly bold behavior. When Liz tried to go even further, Hiro got scared and immediately stopped her. Liz began to doubt herself, deciding that perhaps he did not feel the same way about her. But Hiro immediately denied this, even blushing deeply. He said that precisely because he loved her, he wanted to treat her carefully. At that moment, Hiro decided to make clear how sincere his feelings for Liz were. The hero explained. In the world he came from, a person would be considered a criminal if they physically approached a minor, even though in that royal state adulthood began at 15 years old. He liked Liz, but he still could not fully accept it. Liz understood his feelings and realized, when Hiro makes a decision, he almost never changes his mind. Liz insisted that at least a kiss should be allowed, but Hiro fell into despair as soon as he realized. If he gave in, he could completely lose self-control. Even when he tried to convince her that he would behave properly from then on, at that moment he refused any further advances. Eventually, Liz accepted his decision and said she would patiently wait until that day came. While Liz asked when Hiro would give Vika the bill for his response about becoming a baron, he mentally clenched, trying not to lose self-control in front of her sweetness. Hiro realized there was only a little more than a month left until the end of the year, the period when the national budget was to be approved. He needed to make a decision soon, although he was already leaning towards agreeing. Having accepted the position of baron, he wanted to first talk to the duke responsible for the proposal before giving a final answer. Liz asked how the hero planned to convince the duke and became interested when he admitted he wanted to increase the number of allies. But before the budget meeting, the hero decided to keep the plan secret for at least some time, only promising to start preparations the next day. Before leaving, Liz happily commented that he seemed to have returned to normal, and the hero watched her leave for a while with a peaceful smile. Once again, Hiro pondered. His new life had finally begun to look real. In the old world, he was sure nothing would change Evan after many years, and now he could barely imagine what the next year would be like in that place. Yet thinking about the future he wanted to build together with Liz, Hiro decided he would do whatever was necessary to protect this happiness. Happiness? The next morning, Hiro appeared with a noticeably lighter face, and this immediately touched Liz. She said he seemed restored, like someone who had finally gathered his feelings together. While Hiro tried to hide his embarrassment, Liz was glad that he had returned to the gentle hero she had always known. The hero visited the woodworking workshop with a new idea. He brought a detailed drawing of his project. He asked them to make small round and square pieces of the same size, and to paint each side in different colors. The master quickly grasped the idea and even suggested using molds and enlisting the help of the blacksmith to speed up production. Having settled all the details of the order, Hiro paid in advance and also asked to make changes to the project, in particular, to turn part of the box into a sliding drawer for storing parts. The master approved the ideas and said that this type of wood was ideal for small items. After quite a lengthy tidying up in the workshop, Hiro left satisfied with the progress of the plan and set off to visit the blacksmith. Walking alongside Liz, Hiro noticed a bracelet on her wrist and felt a strange familiarity, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Then Liz happily explained that it was a wedding bracelet made by Deed. In that kingdom, it was customary. The man gave a bracelet during the engagement, and after the wedding, the item was melted down and turned into the couple's wedding rings. As soon as he heard this, the hero froze like he was rooted to the spot. The memory hit his head like a cruel shock, and his eyes widened in despair. He realized far too late. He had completely forgotten about the engagement bracelet he had promised to give Liz.